That's right! Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And BlueDragonFive.
And Santa Claus.
And Jacob Wile, too.
And tonight we're talking about one of the year's most anticipated follow-up forms. This is a true return to form from an artist who has been away from us for far too long. This is an artist who, excels in pratfall comedy mixed with ingenuity and heart. And today, folks, my God, we're going to do a deep dive into the new Johnny Knoxville comedy, Action Point, the spiritual successor to Jackass. So what do you all think of Action Point? Was it worth the 14-year wait?
Yes.
Did the shoehorned in father-daughter subplot just really speak to you? Did that not just be was that not just a whole new evolution on the Jackass formula?
It melted my frozen heart.
All right, so no, seriously, we're not talking about Action Point. We're talking about The Incredibles 2, goddammit! Da 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 da.
Da 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 da.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh man. So this is going to be an interesting conversation because I have a feeling that the four of you that you see here tonight, I'm sorry, Sandy, this is going to be one of these things is not like the other situation. So here's the deal. We're going to go round table. We're going to do our thesis statements on the movie, and you'll find out very soon why Sandy is kind of like the odd man out in this conversation. All right, you guys ready to go?
Yes.
Yes.
So I guess I'll go first since I've seen the movie twice.
So have I.
I know you have. I know you have. So walking into the movie the first time, I was really, really anxious about it. I had a million thoughts flowing through my head. I was just like, what if it sucks? What if it's another Jurassic World situation? What if it's a nostalgic cash grab? And watching the movie, I was just kind of floored by it in terms of oh my God, this is The Incredibles 2, and it feels like The Incredibles 2, and it looks like what The Incredibles 2 should look like, and it's got the ambition and the darkness that The Incredibles 2 should have. I loved it. The only problem I had with it was the villain, and that's something that Sandy and I kind of shared. I gotta say, though, giving it a second watch, the villain is definitely not as captivating as Syndrome, but I don't think this movie called for that. I think this movie called for a villain to be in the background to kind of drive the family dynamics and push the family apart. And that's exactly what this villain accomplished. And for that reason, I really do think this movie hinges on the family dynamics way more than even the first movie does. And for that reason, I feel like this is a very successful kind of MCU-type movie where the villain doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, we're here to see the heroes, and the heroes kick so much ass it could cause an earthquake.
It's about right.
Every hero in this movie is amazing. Every gag, every line. The villains, yeah, sure, it's a little predictable. We kind of called it way back in our kind of predictions podcast. You know what? I really don't care at this point. I'm really kind of throwing up the John Lasseter "we don't care" buttons and just being this is a damn good study on not only the atomic family in the 1960s, but also, of course, the superheroes and the superpowers that go along with it. And granted, I want to see a time jump in part 3. I really want to see a time jump in part 3. But for everything that we got in this movie, the kind of this movie essentially being an epilogue of sorts, I really think it was worth it. I really think it was worth the wait. I think this is the most thrilling action that we've ever gotten from Pixar. I think it's some of the most sharp writing. I think it's some of the best character animation. Watching this second time, it really floored me. Sandy, you got to see this thing again.
I will. at least 2 more times.
I definitely want to see it at least one more time in theaters myself.
As do I.
All right, who wants to go next?
I guess I'll go next since my opinions differ a little bit differently from yours.
Okay.
Going into this movie, I felt the exact same way you did. Where I was really nervous about it, but at the same time, I had really high expectations for it. I think my expectations were a little bit too high, a little bit unrealistic. But at the same time, I think my expectations weren't, unrealistically unrealistic. I really wanted something that just matched the first or exceeded the first. Which call that unrealistic if you may. But walking out of this movie, I didn't. I just left a lot of questions in my head, and I think for people like us, I think this movie is made for us to go back and watch it again, just to see how it really holds up after a few viewings. Because I like you said, Tiki, the villain was definitely the weakest part for me, and you made a pretty good point, pretty fair point, I should say, saying that the villain shouldn't really matter all that much since we're focusing on the family mainly in this one. But I think you can still have a strong villain and still accomplish that in one solid movie. And I that this one just didn't do that. I'm definitely going to see this again, like I said, at least a few more times. And I'm still crazy about it. I definitely don't hate it. I gave it a 7 out of 10 in our last discussion. I think I probably bumped up to 8.9 at this point. But yeah, it was a little bit disappointing, but it's not something that's unbearably disappointing. It delivered. It delivered, and I feel I have probably the unpopular opinion out of the majority that saw the film.
All right, let's go next.
Should I go next or should Dragon?
Why don't you go next, Jacob?
Huh, okay. Okay, going in, obviously, as you guys know, as we all are big fans of the original. And I think that's the whole reason why we were so excited to see this one. Which is. So I was like, luckily enough, I was able to actually secure tickets to a double showing like Ezra was. And I was able to watch the first one and pretty much immediately compared to the second one. So there were some benefits to that, actually. And going in, I was obviously very excited for it because it was this. We have been waiting to see what happened for 14 years, or Perfect Syndrome, 14 years too late, if you will. It has been going in, but coming out of it, I could say I was very, very impressed. I mean, I'm not going to reiterate all the points or everything I would say because basically they'd be going over the exact same things that Tiki said. I mean, I will probably say the villain is probably the weakest point, but even then the villain is still a good character nonetheless. So, like when it's the weakest point and it's still a very strong character, that's a sign of a very strong powered movie, if you will. Overall, I was very quite impressed, and I think it quite lives up to the first one.
All right. So here's what I got. So here's my thesis on Incredibles 2. Of course, in our big old spoiler cast, I'm waiting to kind of get into this one. So I had a joyous experience with this movie that recaptured the feeling of how Brad Bird shook things up back in '04 at Pixar. By the same token, it has that feeling without pulling the same hat trick, so to speak. It felt like that fresh experience from a Pixar, from a period where Pixar is kind of safe and they could keep doing the same things over and over again, and then you get this big radical, kind of like this whole other creative force that kind of gets you there. And then of course it's another Brad Bird film, which is which is always kind of a refreshing kind of cold splash of water in the face in a way. It's like it's a Pixar film unlike any other in many regards. You get like stylistically, there's always just something magic about it, and it's just one of those signatures with the guy. So again, it recaptured that feeling from the first one without just being like like the sequel. Any sequel tropes like, hey, we're doing it because it was in the first one. We're not doing that. I mean,
skillfully kind of reverses the fear that I think a lot of us had where, oh, it's just a gender swap version of the first movie.
Definitely after seeing it a second time, but even noodling it after seeing it the first time, I hit upon this analogy. I think it's perfect. And of course, Tiki and I recently we broke down all the bonus features on the famed Incredibles DVD release, one of the famous Pixar DVD releases, and I was reminded of one of the excellent quotes. There's so many great quotes that Brad Bird kind of devised in the making of The Incredibles. And again, just as a filmmaker, Brad Bird, I could have a whole other podcast on him as a filmmaker. But to boil it down, to borrow one of the excellent kind of comparisons that he has to filmmaking, one of the big mantras in the first Incredibles movie that I think is really applicable to kind of establish what the difference is with Incredibles 2, is that the first film used every part of the buffalo. That was the mantra. Use every part of the buffalo. Nothing wasted. And that film feels like it's kind of it's like one of those perfect movies in a way. Like nothing is wasted in that. Like every scene counts. Like it's edited it's perfectly. The score, everything comes alive in that first movie. Everything is just like nothing was wasted. It's used every part of the buffalo. Where I feel Incredibles 2 use 90. A second viewing, I'll go as far as to say between 90 to 95% of the buffalo. It's still great, but not as perfect. Yet it does what a sequel should. And I've always used the Superman 2 comparison in that it does what a sequel should, and that it continues the story, continues the adventure of the arc of these characters. So it felt like an excellent continuation that met my expectations. Okay, I wanted to see, if we're going to see a movie about what happens next to the Parr family, and this is directly how you do that. So I was very satisfied with it. And it surpassed my expectations, and it was fantastic. One would say incredible.
And Tiki, if I may just say one more thing, going into this movie, I like the first scene, the opening. I felt like that day I was walking to Disneyland. Like, wow, this is actually happening. I cannot believe this is actually happening. And then them fighting the Underminer, which I think the Underminer was one of my favorite elements about this movie. I feel like that character could have been so much more of what I hoped had he been more in more of the film. But yeah, I will say that just so I don't sound so gloomy about this, but that first, the first, I'd say probably 20 minutes just had me like going on, going 90 miles per hour. My brain I'll say that.
Nice. Okay, so we've got some different takes on the movie, but I don't think any of us actively dislike it at all.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good. That's good. We kind of range from liking it to loving it. So let's get started with some background, Dragon. Like I said, my big question for you, Dragon, is how does a movie take 14 years to make a sequel that literally takes place before the first movie even ends?
All right, I'll tell you. So, okay, so obviously The Incredibles comes out. There's a lot of sequel demand. Of course, you always have that lingering question with any Pixar film, like, hey, you're going to do a sequel, and traditionally the Pixar films, for the most part, are made with at least for the longest time, they were made with the understanding that now we're just going to make kind of one-offs. And more often, I would, off the top of my head, I would say maybe half the catalog of Pixar films are just kind of one-shots. Then, of course, there are the ones that were just kind of part of a kind of turned into a franchise, and then ones that were definitely made with the intent of a franchise. So it's an odd thing. So again, you have just that ordinary sequel question, along with the fact that, hey, superhero movie, of course there's going to be a sequel. I mean, has anyone seen Superman here? It's the understanding. Of course, there's always sequel potential. So Brad Bird was hounded relentlessly after Incredibles, and especially after Ratatouille, because like the main thing, I got other films I want to make. Get to Ratatouille, which of course I know he wasn't there from the get-go, but I'm saying he gets busy at Ratatouille, but still fielded with the questions of when are you going to do Incredibles 2? And Brad Bird, he's such an interesting filmmaker in that he shows that, you know, being an outsider kind of went into Pixar. He did keep the kind of the core philosophy of the filmmakers that they don't want to do unnecessary sequels from the outset. They want to do a sequel when the story's right, with the right story figured out. And Brad Bird, he really, his biggest fear was doing a commercial cash grab of like, hey, do another Incredibles movie right after you made the previous one. And as I don't know if anyone's aware of, you know, again, he's always had he's had odd studio relationships at times where, again, studios will either they'll love him or they'll hate him. And of course, you know, he breached in the live actions. And Brad Bird, in large part, he's been busy. That's one of the reasons it's taken a few years. And you got to remember, as the years went on, so as the years go on, it's the question of, you know, we got to get the story right, and there's also that question of, you know what, I mean, there's as the years went on, there are more superhero films, and of course, then the MCU's taken off, so then there's of course a dry spell to take into account of like, you know what, we've kind of done all superhero movies, but then Brad Bird, as the years are going on, he's busy with other projects. Incredibles 2 is that constant kind of whisper in the ear of like, it's kind of that whisper in the ear, you know, where it's you know, it's like, how do I rival all these superhero films? And I was reminded, like, oh, wait a minute, keep it focused on the family, you know, just like Incredibles, the first one. And the core idea, here's the main story point that always remained whenever he kind of went to the well of what to do with Incredibles 2. The main idea he wanted to kind of flower and explore here was Bob and Helen reversing roles, and, you know, the whole Jack power discovery, which was set up, you know, towards the end of Incredibles and with Jack Attack. So, of course, so again, now once they settled on, okay, we're going to do Incredibles 2, and there was a whole Pixar had the sequel deal in place when they had the whole Disney Pixar merger. Incredibles was not part of that discussion, from what I understand. It was not part of I don't believe it was part of the discussion. Because again, we had we had Cars, Toy Story, and I want to say, I forget if Monsters Inc. or Dory was in part included in that. I think
sure that was part of that original deal.
Monsters. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, yeah, I think you're right about that too. So yeah, I think those were like the original 3-part. Like, okay, if we do this deal, you have to make 3 sequels, and those are the 3 agreed upon. Because again, Brad Bird wasn't one of those guys from the beginning, so he was always kind of like half in, half out, and it just kind of he chimed in as part of the Pixar brain trust, and, you know, as he did his own movies. So
Brad Bird is like the Spicoli of Pixar.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way. I guess it's kind of right.
He's just like, hey, I'm just you know, I'm not really going to school here, but I'm gonna hang out anyways. You kid.
So the biggest question in everybody's mind, I'm sure of Tiki more than anyone else, is why not do the time jump? You know, why not? You know, why not do 14 years later? So here's the reason we don't get the 14-year time jump. So Brad Bird chose not to do time jump essentially for good reason. I think he did it because it was kind of the obvious move. It's the easy fix. It's what you'd imagine. It's what has been done already with like something like Toy Story 3. It's kind of been done and done really well, and it's kind of the expected move. You know, 14 years. I was one of the people who thought, yeah, you do 14 years later, it's a no-brainer because, you know, the kid who plays Dash, you know, he's older, so you can't use him. So you get like an older actor, bring him back, like we did with Morris. You know, I think it was John Morris, the kid who played Andy from Toy Story, and we bring him back, and we just, you know. We just pick up where we left off, and it was kind of an easy choice. The harder choice in animation, especially with Pixar, with every movie advances the technology and everything. The harder, more interesting choice is, what if we do a film about Aftermath? And it's a film about Aftermath, and it's a film that takes place literally like 2 seconds after The Incredibles. Something that's almost unheard of when you have sequels. You rarely do start directly where the last one left off, and let alone have to match the animation.
And you know what, Dragon? As soon as I saw where they were going with the story, and as soon as I saw, like, okay, like, they're literally like poking fun at the whole idea of the time jump. Like, they're just like, we're not starting right after the first movie. We're starting right before the first movie ends. Like, it's just like absurd. I've never seen a movie sequel do that kind of thing. I think the closest comparison I can make is like the cold open to Back to the Future Part 2 is kind of the, you know, the reshot ending of Back to the Future Part 1. But
essentially, yeah, I think that's a good comparison. Yeah, and the last thing really about the time jump, before we just get into the last little bit of production things, that There was a big story reason for Brad Bird why he didn't want to do the time jump as well. That was just like kind of the technical, like why not do the time jump. The big character reason was that the way he views the superpowers, that when he came up with the idea for the Incredibles, every power reflected, the characters, as in, and there's a chance, and again, this is like a theory that he's kind of said, he suggested this, but he's never really said, like, that's absolutely what the plan is that the powers are reflective of the characters. Bobby's he's the strong family man, Alaska has to be flexible, Dash, he's a 10-year-old kid, hyper 100 miles a minute. Violet, sullen teen, Jack potential powers, and I think the idea he's always had that he's never really expressed is that as the characters grow, then the powers might change. As again, there's a chance Jack's powers could change or settle as he grows older. So the point is, he wanted the powers to be thematic, and if you do a time jump, they would be already in a different place. You miss kind of he's more interested in the story of like getting him from point A to point B than just seeing him. Okay, suddenly we're in point B years later.
I hear that.
So basically, it was the powers, logistics, and like the whole, let's not do a story about the family separate, because the whole movie's about them as a family unit. We got to see them together. We got to see them go through these hurdles. So anyway, so that's pretty much the story behind the time jump. Big thing with the production, then we'll jump right into is that. So Toy Story 4 had some production issues, famously, and of course we'll see how that turns out next year. And it was the original plan was Toy Story 4 was supposed to come out this year, and then Incredibles next year. And because production was moving, basically Brad Bird had all his ducks in a row. Again, he's had at least roughly 14 years to kind of plot some story ideas. That doesn't mean he had it all at the ready, but once they get started on the production, it's like, okay, things were starting to go swimmingly. And he says, you know what, guys, we're having some trouble with Toy Story 4. Let's switch it around. The big switch in release dates, which means they didn't have time to do a lot of the stuff they did in the first one. So impressively, this movie was made under duress, back against the wall, which is some of the Pixar's finest filmmaking. Look at Toy Story 2, for example. Back against the wall filmmaking, where they had to do there were barely any color scripts. They had to do a lot of the back against the wall decisions. There wasn't as many boards as there was in the first movie. I'm not saying there weren't boards at all, but the point is, all of this with the fact that a sequel is not easy, which leads to some. Basically, the hardest decision that they made in the movie was the villain stuff. The villain plot flip-flopped a lot. So the villain was the main thing that was the hardest thing to figure out. With them again rushing the release date, but still having 14 years to ruminate on what next. So again, they weren't completely helpless on this. So essentially, that's the ball game, boys. That's all we know at this point before an excellent DVD release.
All right. I guess, Dragon, just shoot us with a quick plot synopsis, and then we'll all join the party and get into the characters.
All right, folks, here's the plot in a nutshell. So after the Parr family try to stop the Underminer, it's the nail in the NSA's coffin, National Super Agency, not that other group. It's a nail in the NSA's coffin, leaving the family in a motel contemplating what next. A super advocate and telecommunications mogul by the name of Winston Dever and his sister, Evelyn Dever, one could also say.
God.
His inventor sister, Evelyn. They recruit Elastigirl and Bob and Frozen, but especially Elastigirl, to sell the world on supers again. While this is happening, Bob stays at home with the kids and contends with a super baby, as Elastigirl faces the Screenslaver. In the end, all of our plots converge to stop the Screenslaver's master plan of turning the world against supers in a big way. And that's the movie.
Okie dokie. So we're going to break down the characters. We're going to go through the supers first and then get to the suits. So let's get to the supers. Helen is, of course, kind of advertised as the main character here. So let's get to her.
Super suits.
Where's my super suits?
I was like, you better be back ASAP.
Why do you need to know? We're just quoting lines at this point. Yes, let's talk about Helen. So Helen, my God. So Elastigirl's always been interesting in these movies. She always had these great moments to shine. I think we keep the momentum going with that here. Where Helen, yep.
What I like about this, like you sound like only like brief snippets of what she could do in the previous movie. Like here, they really went all out with what she could do.
Oh my God, the power demonstrations that play in this movie are fantastic. It's like it's Spider-Man levels of flexibility.
And considering one of our board artists worked on Spider-Man, that does not surprise me.
I'd actually think I'd like to see Brad Bird direct a Spider-Man movie.
I want him to see. I want to have him. I really want him to direct Superman so badly. If Iron Giant wasn't a testament to give Brad Bird a Superman movie,
that Max Fleischer style Superman movie we were talking about.
Maybe. Anyway, so Helen, she's in this position where she's super again, and she's remembering the thrill of it all. The thrill like Snug's taking her from job to job, and she's kind of swooping in. She's character-wise, she's flexible to both sides, which was a very smart choice. It's a no-brainer, but it's a smart choice.
It's kind of funny how she now realizes why Bob was doing it.
Yeah, the police scanner bit we get there.
That's like, one of my favorite bits with Helen. Oh, I'm such a hypocrite. It's like I love that because it's like at least she's self-aware about it. You know what I mean? Like any other sequel would kind of just have it be a callback, but with this, it's just kind of like, we're addressing kind of like the family problems they have in a fun way.
Absolutely. Yeah. So again, I love that she's flexible to both sides with the super debate of like, it's like she has this moral compass about her, and it's like she's trying to do what's right and what's just. Like later on with the pizza, with the pizza guy, without getting too into it, I just like that she cares about justice. She cares about that as much as Bob does. But again, she's like Bob's a very kind of direct guy about the solution. Like he's in the field. He knows exactly, okay, what's right, what's wrong. Helen realizes there's some gray in there. She realizes, what, I can see again. She lived with the bad side of supers, and we went underground, and that's just like whether a law is just or not. So she's kind of ruminating on that, and she kind of lived with accepting that. Now she's in a position where I'm going to challenge that, but I'm going to be kind of breaking the law to kind of change a law. So again, she's in this great. Again, fitting her namesake. It's wonderful.
I really like how throughout the movie we see her become more and more open with the idea of celebrity and the idea of fame, and it's a great kind of character animation on her part.
Yeah, without getting cocky, and I think that's important. I think we have that with her and Bob. Her and Bob, Bob could be easily unlikable in this movie if we don't do that.
Oh, we'll talk about Bob because
sure.
There's a fine line that they do with Bob, and it's amazing that they pull it off. It's like a freaking card trick.
I know, right?
Like a hand dragon.
Briefly speaking of Helen in the field, I love that she's like a working mom in the field, because one of my favorite bits with Helen is like when Dash calls her on the Elasticycle.
Dash, honey, you can't talk now. Look under your bed. Bye.
I was saying she's helpful while still being, it's like, okay, I'm in the middle of something now, but she hasn't dismissed the kid. It's wonderful. She's such a good mother in the field. And something really big that we do with her too. I love just getting a sense of, because again, we saw Bob in the field in the first movie. And Elastigirl was honestly, she had a cameo in her costume as Elastigirl. But I love that we're painting this really interesting portrait, like what Helen might have been like in her younger days here, and that she's, again, the fact that she has like the least collateral damage out of any of the supers, the fact that she has great deductive skills, and I love how visually we show that she has these. She's really intelligent and instinctual. Basically, I think if Bob's instinctual, she's intelligent in the field. That's their balance. I really like that.
I like how they totally call Bob out on the fact that he basically just destroys anything whenever he's saving the day. Because that's something I've always noticed with, of course, with, there's a lot like most superheroes like Superman or Mr. Incredible, they stop that bad guy, but then they bring down like 3 skyscrapers with them. I like
love
that
the rundown of the aftermath of the Underminer. Did you stop the Underminer? No. Did you prevent further damage?
No.
Did you prevent him from robbing the banks?
No.
Yeah, so I like how it's just all based around that, and that's where basically why Elastigirl, she's sent out into this field instead of Bob. I like that's the reason why. It's not just some other personal preference type thing.
Yeah, I like too that, again, like without succumbing to pride.
It basically plays into what they said about Winston, like what Evelyn said, like he knows people. He knows that Elastigirl will be the best bet in this kind of tense situation.
Certainly. I like that, without succumbing to pride, we kind of have the Wonder Woman effect in place of she's becoming an icon like Bob was in his day. We're getting incredible. A guy called Mr. Incredible, that's going to make headlines easily. And she's kind of like now Elastigirl's in everybody's mind. Like teenagers are recognizing her in the street, like, oh my god, that's Elastigirl. Hi, Elastigirl, marry me. That's the whole thing. I rewatching, completely forgot that line by that one kid says, marry me. It just is ridiculous. So yeah, we just have that. Again, it's like Elastigirl. She was so dead set against being a super because she kind of settled in the family life. Where again, she's in a way she's kind of getting back to the lifestyle that she imagined for herself in the opening of The Incredibles, where she said, "Settle down." I can't ever imagine that. And she's kind of being seduced into the super lifestyle, but not in a negative way. She's kind of being still seduced into that lifestyle, unbeknownst to herself. I think.
I'm guessing that everybody knows that Syndrome killed all the other older supers, right?
Well, Bob knows that, so he's probably told everybody. So everyone, the supers either they disappeared, and if people, I think the general public assumes that they're just gone. Where like Bob and the NSA, they know they're dead.
It's unsure if Syndrome actually killed almost everyone though, or just killed a large. I mean, it's at least known he killed a large number.
He's killed at least 15 of the big guys. I know that however many are on the NSA files, all of them are sent. Okay, that's fair. Basically, any image that we see, they're dead because they kept working through the Omnidroid prototype, which means everyone except, obviously Mr. Incredible, Frozone, and Elastigirl would have been killed by that model.
And, of course, there are those killed by their capes.
Oh yeah, right. There's that, too. Of course, I'm saying a lot of them are most likely dead. Honestly, they're probably the biggest body count of any Pixar franchise, to be frank.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
But funnily enough, none of them were in this one.
Yep.
It's the biggest body count in any franchise, and nobody died in this movie except in a flashback.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think a death or two wouldn't have hurt.
Well, again, we have effective deaths in flashback, though, so that's kind of big.
Yeah, I guess so. I keep thinking of Brad Bird's original pitch to the studio that included Snug getting blown up in the plane.
Right.
I wish we could have gotten to see Snug in this. He's never mentioned. We never see him. He's still alive, but I wish Bird would have brought him back. I don't know why.
I mean, you get it though. Is that Dever would have his own plan. Dever would have his own plane. He wouldn't need like an outside pilot to kind of chauffeur Elastigirl around. So I guess
that's true. But I mean, it seems like since we picked up who he was in the original movie, at least a little bit. He was introduced. I wish we would have gotten to know him a little bit more, or at least a mention of some sort, just so we know he's not completely forgotten by their main characters.
That's fair. All right. So should we transition to Bob then?
Yeah, sure. So as you said, Dragon, Bob kind of pulls this balancing act of he could absolutely be unlikable in this movie, but he's not. And there's just so many subtle pieces of animation that are some of the finest bits in the movie for me.
Like when he's on the phone and you see him initially, he's like banging his head against the counter, like, "Oh, my wife's successful," and then he hears how happy she is on the phone, genuinely happy, and then you see him do this kind of grin and bear it thing, where again it's not forced as it was a moment before, but you see him like, "That's great, honey." And basically, again, like you see him suck it up and like, "Yeah, this is what she's happy," and
he's basically like, "Why am I getting so mad at her for this?"
Exactly, and of course, honestly, for me, ever since the trailer, and I still love this bit. Just I love the acting. I need to succeed so she can succeed, so we can succeed. Again, he's so in love with this family. It's really nice.
Yeah, I absolutely think Craig T. Nelson, Dragon, you were really looking forward to his performance, and I think you were right to be hyped up about it because he knocks it out of the park in this one. I really think that. We get kind of the tired Mr. Incredible. We get the irate Mr. Incredible. We get the whacked out lack of sleep Mr. Incredible. He goes through just a gauntlet of emotions and stages and mental syndrome.
Not Mr. So-So, Mr. Incredible.
I eat lightning and crap thunder, baby.
Even the good dad, Mr. Incredible.
Yeah, exactly.
I kind of tell my favorite delivery in the whole movie from him is this moment where it's he says, "We will both be great." I don't know. It's just so it's just so simplistic, and it's just so like you'll be great. I know I'll be great. We will both be great. It's just so kind of wooden, but in a loving way. So it's a radio announcer.
I need you to do it so I can do it better.
Yeah. Let's see. So aside from just like the sounds of Mr. Incredible, let's look character-wise with the guy. So he's so it's Bob. He's kind of finding this new life challenge that he was looking for, but not the way he thought it would be.
I'm honestly kind of glad they didn't go with like the whole struggling to take care of kids, like because of how dads can't take care of kids thing. He's like, no, he like the only reason he can't is because he has superpowers and his family's nuts. But like he rises up to the challenge and actually does a good job with it once like they all understand what he's going through.
And in an interesting way, with the exception of Frozen, who we just have like a quick callback gag with in this regard, is that, again, thinking about it, we do still mine from that opening scene in The Incredibles, because we do with Helen and we do with Bob, too, where he's talking about settling down for a family, and we're continuing that idea of, okay, so now he's accepting the family lifestyle, but it's another challenge he has to contend with, as the stay-at-home dad, which is something different than he's ever had to do. And honestly, it's kind of a happy medium for him where he gets to deal with superpowers and his family. So it's kind of a mixture of both worlds.
Plus, we see him struggle, with Thash's math and everything, but he quickly rises to the challenge and gets everything accomplished. I think basically the main thing is Jack and how just uncontrollable he is with his powers, and that's definitely where the kind of crazy Bob comes from.
But again, the animation on him in the robe and like the 5 o'clock shows, Crazy Bob looks fantastic. The beautiful train wreck, it's just like
one of my favorite deliveries of Bob, though, before he goes in crazy mode, is when he is still in helpful dad mode. Dragon, when you were talking about how he, or Sandy, you were talking about how he wakes Dash up, he rises to the occasion with his homework, he's helping Dash get his homework done, and then we get this sweet delivery. It melts my heart. It's like,
I know what you're talking about. I love this.
Yeah. Yeah, baby. And I love the yeah, baby, because it's like it's Craig T. Nelson, like he's got it perfectly down where it's like he's giving it his all, but he is so exhausted.
Yeah, of course, he had like that "yeah, baby" with the police scanner in the first movie. Yeah, baby, and
it's like a second trademark line after Showtime.
Yeah. So
I'm sorry, we didn't get enough Showtime in this movie, though.
You're right about that, but then again, I guess he wasn't really in the field that much, so he usually would say Showtime. I love how each kid reflects a different challenge for Bob here. Where Dash is kind of, again, it picks up the hot potato of the whole Bob going up against the system, where he's very against especially the school system, where it's like they're moving him from one grade to the next. In this case, why are they changing math? And with Violet, it's kind of the unknown of honestly, Bob's out of his depth most with Violet, and that it's kind of the unknown unpredictability of a teenager, and he has that in a literal sense with Jack with the powers. And again, that's kind of the power of he wants to live the super lifestyle, but he just kind of wants to have it on his own terms. And Jack's the rude awakening. No, you can't have it on your own terms. Your kids has powers, and you're gonna have to deal with that. Power.
I'll tell you what. A lot of times I'm kind of a sucker for the dad and daughter kind of relationship in these kinds of movies. I really love his and Violet's dynamic in this.
I know, it's wonderful. We kind of teased it a little. Violet and Bob get the least. No, it's not. I don't mean in a negative way. I mean, we just didn't. We had a little moment with Bob and Violet in the first movie. You're burning your hair back. It was like, oh yeah, thanks. It looks nice. So that was the one bit that we had in the first movie. This movie is chock full of that Violet and Bob stuff, and just that beautiful moment. Oh, you're a super dad. It's so heart meltingly wonderful.
Even though he was asleep.
Yes, but he heard it though. Remember in the following scene, he says "super." That's a little callback to "Hey, I heard you," even though I was falling asleep. Oh my god, it was so adorable.
It's that was one of my. That is one of my favorite scenes. It's not intense. It's just a soft moment, and It's like, oh,
The key is,
but the fact that it just feels so genuine from both of them. They're just like okay, we've had our ups and downs, but at the end, we're family.
what they did is they cracked the code, and that the key to having a fantastic Mr. Incredible moment is you make him vulnerable, and that's what we did in the first movie, the whole "I can't lose you again" moment, like right before the "I'm not strong enough," the whole "I'm the droid" big showdown moment right before that. And of course here, like again, the big testament to why Bob really works in this movie is that he's living up to his name, his super name as a parent, and he's failing at it. And he just shows that his heart is in the right place, and he's sympathetic, and we're like checking off all the right boxes here. And we're showing vulnerability not through the whole thing. He's getting crazy, so we're making the vulnerability funny. But then we show like a genuine, like he's just being straight with his daughter. He's just telling her like, I'm sorry, I didn't know it was going to happen. I botched things up. And he has also like we have that with Edna, where he's saying, I broke my daughter, and he feels so heartbroken about that. My God, I mean, honestly, I think what they did so cleverly with Craig T. Nelson overall is that Craig T. Nelson, 14 years have passed, and he does sound a little older, but what they did so strategically is that they used that to their advantage for this Bob.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So smart.
He doesn't sound much different, though. I mean, he doesn't sound that much different, though, so it works.
Again, it's like it's a little difference, but they rolled with it and they made it work, and it advanced his character.
It's like an older, wiser Bob.
Yes, even though it's only been 2 seconds.
Yes.
All right.
Well, I feel like with this movie, like it's been 2 seconds, but at the same time, it's been 14 years, which of course it has. But I feel like these characters have grown. In the time between the movies, even though there is no time between the movies, in this universe they're in. I'm not sure how to explain it really. I hope you guys get what I'm talking about. But these characters just feel more.
I mean, look, in the grand scheme, we joke about 2 seconds. In reality, it's like since the island, it's been 2 weeks, and that's where we start the movie. So it's 2 weeks since the first Incredibles movie.
I think what he means is like we've like along with like the characters, like we've grown with the characters too, and in this movie, like there are subtle differences between it, but even at the end, even though it's not that long after, they do have changes themselves as well.
Well, I think from Nomasian Island and Dash's track race, I think that was more like a few months, right?
Yeah, technically it was like I think it was like implied to have at least been a couple months.
It was either like 2 months or 2 weeks, and I don't know why. I'm thinking, actually, I think you're right. I'm just thinking because the house was destroyed, and that sounded like a recent event. So I'm thinking, I don't know if it's weeks or not. I'm not sure. But,
well, I mean, they're still living in the motel at that point, so it probably was just like a month or so.
That's the thing. You're probably right, I guess, because you have to rebuild and find a house. So I guess probably be.
Does anybody else wonder how Bob still has his original suit even though the house was blown up?
What?
Well, maybe it's indestructible. Maybe it's indestructible. Well, then again, it was cut open by a. Then again, the Omnidroid was indestructible itself, so maybe his suit is indestructible, but less indestructible than the Omnidroid.
I know, but his suit is spotless. Like I don't know, but I think he still had some of his old memorabilia from the old days.
He did, and it was like charred in the fire and everything. And he probably cleaned the suit before he got it,
I mean, technically, it's not machine washable because, as Edna points out, and machine washable, darling, that's a new feature.
Of course, and I love how we call that back with Violet later in the movie. Okay, I guess. Well, speaking of Violet, you guys want to just kind of like go over the Violet?
Yeah, I feel like we've already kind of covered some big beats with her, but let's just kind of go over the main talking points of her arc, I guess.
So Violet, she's dealing with. I love that each character is dealing with kind of a different aspect, and not with being family and also being a superhero. And Violet kind of has the superhero thing, where again, refreshingly, where you'd imagine Bob would be a no-brainer. Where we're making him kind of the stay-at-home dad. Where Violet, we have kind of her dealing with the superhero dual identity of it all. Kind of having that double life, and just kind of However, in doing that, we don't use the cliches impressively. We don't spend a lot of time at the high school with barely anything, which was a smart call. And we see that supers have definitely complicated her movie dates. So I love it's like her one goal. It's like she just wants to go to a movie with Tony Ridinger. That's her main goal in the.
I love how this movie just like oh, you want to see what happened with Tony Ryanger? We'll show you what happened with Tony Ryanger.
Honestly, the biggest hat trick in this whole film, guys, is so impressive. Is that we're literally recycling the same ending of the first movie, but in a way that does not just feel cheap. It just feels like, yeah, we're doing it again. I don't care. It's great.
They're actually trying to show the movie date, which is like they decided as like a way to wrap her up, and now it's like a part of her arc in this movie.
I know it was revealed in a TV spot beforehand or in a trailer or something that Tony sees her without her mask. But what did everybody else think of that? What do you guys think of that when you realized that was actually going to be something that happened?
I didn't actually see that TV spot, so I was actually kind of.
Yeah, I didn't either. So in the moment, I was definitely, I was just really taken by the whole opening with Rick Dicker and everything. And
yeah,
I was when Rydinger saw her, I was like, oh boy.
It all just kind of lined up like, okay, that's why Ryinger's in that chair right now.
Yep.
Yeah. So Sarah Vowell, I think she has an excellent performance as Violet in this movie. She gets a lot of comedy. She gets to really do more. And Violet really grows as a character in the field specifically. And I like that you can see that each kid, specifically Violet and Dash, they kind of emulate the other parent. Where Violet is emulating her mother, in that she's very field capable. She's intelligent in places. And in Dash, you see at many points he's kind of like trying to kind of please his father and kind of growing into the man that his father is in the field, which is very interesting. They have that good kind of balance with the kids. And, of course, Jack is kind of his own deal there in a really big way. So Violet, she shows a lot of promise. And I like that again, the thing is like against the cliches that she doesn't just want to not be a super. She's like, she accepts it. It was fun to be in the field as a family. She likes kind of, again, being a super kind of brought her out of her shell. And she's kind of having fun, kind of discovering who she is, having this double life, and she accepts the double life, but it's just that if it's going to complicate things, complicating her having that normal life, which Helen had the balance, which again, so kind of trippy is that, again, she's kind of emulating Helen's struggle. It's kind of the mother becoming the daughter in certain respects. It's interesting. Yeah.
And
then
again, sorry.
I'll go on. I had enough. Go on.
Like, okay, and then things get complicated when she finds out why Tony was like, it's like, do I know you?
And again, your heart goes out to it.
Movie is when Bob is kind of casually talking to her about the situation at breakfast, and we see him like open the fridge door, and he kind of he drops Dicker's name. He opens the fridge door, then he closes the fridge door, and we see Violet's face just staring right up at him, just ripe with rage. Like, it was Dicker!
Oh my god. It's crazy. Yeah, Violet is hilarious. It's like angry, but I guess angry.
Well, like I was telling you, Tiki, before, on Wednesday, it's Friday, whatever it was. I really like Violet's character, how she grows as a character in this movie. I think, like I said before, I think she's definitely undoubtedly is one of my favorite, or if not my favorite character in the movie. Just because of I think they gave her appropriate screen time. Honestly, I think Jack got too much screen time. I think they did Violet right. We're giving her just enough screen time, and story, but not trying to sell an entire section of the movie only on her. I'm not sure if that makes sense or not. I'm trying to.
No, yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. It seemed like with Jack, this is kind of out of place here, but it seemed like Jack was just got a little bit too much screen time. It seemed like kind of cheap to put him in so much, cheap laughs and stuff like that. I don't know. We'll get to him. But.
So unless you guys have anything to set the world on fire about Violet, I guess we should move on to Dash. The Dash.
Dash doesn't do too much in this movie. He's basically just chilling over on the sidelines.
I honestly kind of disagree. I feel like with Dash, he serves two purposes. One, in the family dynamic, he is the annoying little brother, and I love that he wears the annoying little brother card like a badge of honor. And when he's interacting with Ryanger. And two, I love all the stuff with the Incredicar. Like, that was a great arc to have with Dash. Like, it was simple, and I do agree that Dash is probably like the most clear cut. Like, he doesn't have like a whole lot in terms of storyline. But that in Credit Card was a really, really fun payoff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that we reverse roles and that Dash got more screen time than Violet did in the first movie, and I think that we still do stuff with Dash. I just think it's more subtle than what we do with Violet here, and that's not a problem. It's just different. Is that it's like Dash is a character of simple. I'm sorry.
I mean, Dash already kind of got his ambition fulfilled in the first movie with him being able to try out for sports.
Exactly, because it would feel like a rehash if we just did that again. Because Dash is a character of simple and immediate desires, hence the power set. He's all he really wants to do is be a super and pass math. That's as far as his desires go in this movie, and
the credit card.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. That's kind of into the whole super territory there, where again, while he can't be out in the field, you can play with the car. And what I love with the car is one of my favorite devices in the movie on a rewatch, especially. Is I love that again, he's connecting to his father via the glory days, via the car, like many fathers and sons do. There's a bond over cars in a way, and I love that this brings out one of my favorite moments in the movie. I love one of my favorite moments with Bob in the movie. That again, Dash is definitely kind of kicks us in the high gear here, where at Bob's lowest point, honestly, the low point for Bob in the movie is when he realizes his car is some rich guy has his car. It's like they said it was the short. I love that's the person, like that's the knife in the wound for him. That's this low point at the movie, and it brings up this fantastic moment where again Dash kind of pleases his father, and again he grabs the remote, and he's like, oh my god, you just have no, I don't know. It was like Bob's instinct is like, I took my car. He gets the remote, and then Dash kind of piggybacks off that, and he's messing with the car and like saying, hey, shouldn't we get it back? It's your car. And basically Dash gets Bob to this place where we see kind of the impulsiveness versus kind of this morality, where he imparts a really important lesson to his son of like, one, I don't want a rich guy coming after me, which again, that's Brad Bird writing 101, and I love it, and that's great. And secondly, it's like, yeah, morally, it's not the right thing to just take your car back, because the guy bought it in an auction, you would be stealing it, and it's not right. And Incredible knows this in his DNA, and he kind of imparts that lesson to his son. Of course, the son still kind of delivers the car, and Bob gives him that look of like, hey, this car, you shouldn't have this car, but he gives him that smile like, yeah, I'm proud.
Nice. And plus, we see at the end they get an entirely new car, just implying that they didn't keep the one, they gave it back, and I think that's very honorable too.
That's possible. Then again, it could just be the same car with a paint job or like an upgrade. So we're not sure. I like to think you're right, though, Sing. I want to say I like to think that you're right on that.
I think it was a new car. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't. I'm not sure.
I'm just saying with the transforming capers. I like to think you're right, though, because that's a good idea, and it's feasible.
And I also like to give friends they found the Pixar continues with their sequel trend of finding very good sound-alikes. I mean Huck Milner's sounds like almost exactly like Spencer.
I know, it's flawless. I love that. You're absolutely right, Jacob. It's such a flawless recreation of Dash. And again, that was the big whole time jump question of Dash, and of course it's something they've done before with Nemo. It's like a no-brainer. Just didn't occur to me after all these years of The Incredibles. Like, oh yeah, they could just get a kid that sounds just like him.
Wait, did they actually give Spencer Fox a cameo in this?
I wouldn't be surprised if they did, but just on the two watches, I couldn't. Again, I don't know what he sounds like now, so I had no way of knowing it. But I didn't recognize him in the credits. Though,
you know what? I wish he would have been the pizza guy.
Again, we got to look at it though. He might be. Again,
I looked up Bill Wise did the pizza guy in Screenslaver.
Fun fact: there's a Bill Wise at Pixar, the technical director, who I was going to lose my mind if he was the actual voice of that character. Oh my God, Bill Wise! He was the technical director, and he sounded so cool. But no, it wasn't Bill Wise at all. It was just another actor by the name of Bill Wise. But do you know if that pizza guy's name was Todd, by the way, or is it just Pizza Guy?
It's just Pizza Guy.
I'd be amazed if it's Todd, and we'll get into that reason why later. I'm sorry, Jake, you were saying?
I wonder if he worked for Pizza Planet.
That's what I'm saying, and I have evidence for you. We'll get there.
But seriously, props to Huck Milner for basically doing a spot-on impression of Spencer Fox.
Very talented. Okay. Again, I like that Dash. Again, he shows great promise in that Violet's kind of a team leader potential, where Dash, he's all about saving people and perimeter dude. He's eager for perimeter dude. I like that kid, man.
I mean, he's perfectly suited for it.
All right, so I guess let's. I guess we should next get to let's get the Frozone.
Frozone, yes, I love Frozone.
Frozone is so ridiculously cool. I mean, yes, it's kind of a pun, but he is really cool, though. Come on.
I was just about to say the coolest superhero there is.
Yeah, it's like, how can Frozen get any better? One, we give him like the '70s theme song that Bob Odenkirk sings to. And by the way, all those theme songs are real things you can find on YouTube. By the way, they do the toy commercials with the actual well-produced, and it's in the credits too. If you stay to the end of the credits, they play all 3 theme songs.
Yeah.
But yeah, Frozone. I like that we had Frozen as a hero, but also kind of like we explored the vigilante side of things, where he kind of swooped in, he helped save the day, then he got out of there. He was smart enough to realize, okay, cops, supers are illegal. I gotta get out of here.
Plus, we see Frozone as a villain. That's really cool too.
It's terrifying when he just goes ah.
Samuel L. Jackson knocks it out of the park yet again.
He does, and of course, the best Frozone moment for me in the movie is one of my favorite moments in the movie. Honestly, is when he helps. Again, I always love Frozen helping the family and just being that friend of the family. The whole honestly, I had an epiphany when I was watching when Tiki and I were getting ready for the DVD thing, and I kind of realized that, oh my god, it's basically it's kind of like the Cap and Falcon dynamic, but for Bob and for Bob and Frozone. It's like they're lifelong kind of friends with this great chemistry. It's a no-brainer. And so I love that history of that dynamic, and I also love that moment where we see Frozen just swoops in at the last minute to save the kids as the mind-controlled supers are at their door, and he says, "Hey, Deborah sent me too," and Sam Jackson just plays it. He owns that scene so well, and it's such a tense. We don't have a lot of the one. It's not a gripe for me against the movie, but it's a difference is that we don't have like a scene like Bob versus Mr. Huff from the first movie, but the closest we get to that sort of that cinematic tension is like when Frozen swoops in and he's like playing it cool while he knows like this is about to go wrong. He's like the friendly neighbor who saves the kids. It's awesome.
Yeah, and that's why I love his role in this movie. I think Frozen in this movie is definitely I prefer his role in this movie more than I do in the first movie, just because of just that scene where he shows up at the house right before the villains or the heroes turn bad guys against their will do, and I like the way the whole entire scene plays out. He actually so likable.
And he actually proves to be one of like the more when he actually, since it's a spoiler cast, I'll say spoiler. When he actually gets turned evil himself, he actually proves to be one of the most deadly.
He is, again, that sudden ice blast. Again, the ice effects, of course, again, no-brainer. All of our effects look even better than they did before. And it's like the sudden burst of the ice blast and kind of the hanging ice in the air. It's immediate and kind of scary. And
I liked it even more when I know he blasted. Who was it?
Was it Brick?
Yeah, Brick, and then
electric. You mean the electric guy?
Yeah, I forget which one was specific, but the ice doesn't stop him. He just breaks out of it almost immediately. Super cool.
Oh yeah.
There's also I think it was Crusher there.
Probably. I mean, again, they were kind of they were all there, so I guess he was probably there.
I think Void, which we'll talk about next, was the only one of the new supers that I actually liked or cared about.
Yeah, you're right. We'll get to Void very momentarily. There's one last thing with Frozen, though, because I think it's important to hit with Frozen. I meant to bring this up with Elastigirl, too. I like that, again, I kind of mentioned the kind of Wonder Woman effect with Elastigirl, where, she is kind of becoming this icon to, female heroes. And it's, it's like a hero that, girls and mothers and everyone can aspire. And that's kind of a cool thing with Elastigirl. And Frozen, we had a little bit with Frozen. It was a very minor bit. I thought it was kind of a nice bit. They worked in there. And that, it's definitely an age after Black Panther, especially. Again, it's kind of relevance by the fact, of course, this bit was probably in there before that movie came out, even. But it's just the fact, it's kind of serendipity, I guess. Is that I love that we had this the black limo driver who said, I'm your you're my biggest fan. He botched it up when where he said, and that guy, that earnestness, I like that. Again, it was like a little bit. And Brad Bird knows how to nail these little bits that kind of communicate volumes. Where it's a little bit where again it communicates that Frozen. You would imagine he would be an icon to to young black men as Black Panther is. Black Panther have kind of the Christopher Reeve effect. So that's kind of interesting. You have a really cool hero who definitely he's worked side to side with Mr. Incredible. He's cool in his own right. So again, Frozen, he's a role model as well, which is nice. Kind of an icy Luke Cage to an extent in terms of cool factor there. All right, so I guess we'll hit Void. And folks, we're basically going to bullet point the other supers. We're really going to focus on Void. Because Void has, as Sandy said, Void has a lot of interesting stuff with her. So, Sandy, hit us with Void.
I've only seen the movie once, and so I can't really say a whole lot of what I truly think of this character. But I know that if we get a third movie, which I'm sure we will, hopefully it's not in another 15 to 14 years. But when the third one comes out, Lord willing, I would really like to see more on Void. I think her character was the thing is with the other ones, they just seemed too goofy. I just didn't like how how Brick he seemed like Wreck-It Ralph, and it didn't seem like he fit in with the other characters with the designs and everything like that. I don't know the Vulture guy. I'm not sure what his name was, but I don't know.
Screech.
Screech, yeah. I wasn't really the biggest fan of him, and
honestly, I think the brick part was part of the joke, though.
Well, that's the thing. Sandy, you're right on the money. All of those are gag heroes. That's the point. They're all two of them might. The point is they're all gimmick, like over the top gimmicks / gag heroes, with the exception of Void. We get Sophia Bush to play Void, and I thought she did like an earnest job at the role. And again, I say earnest in that she's very, very genuine. Basically, here's the fascinating thing of Void that really hit me on a rewatch too. Even noodling it between the first watch and the second watch, so they definitely hit upon on the second watch is that she's kind of this delightful fangirl, and she's a great examination. This is where sequel territory really comes in and really helps the movie here, where we kind of, in a subtle way, we don't like hammer it over the head, but in a subtle way, we examine the lesson with Buddy Pine.
Yeah,
Elastigirl knows how to she handles her fans well. She treats the fan tenderly. She's very overzealous, and she's kind of nurturing that instead of just like, Bob wasn't entirely in the wrong, but he could have treated the kid well. He could have let him down easier, or he shut him off for his own protection. But by the same token, it's like she's mentoring this hero. She's cultivating, especially after the syndrome lesson. It's a very, very smart choice.
They could have easily just made her another syndrome, and that would have been like that would have been kind of like a sequel cop out almost.
Exactly, and let's say,
speaking of which, were you going to say something, Dragon?
I was going to say, I love her power. Looks amazing. Void's power and the name and the whole gimmick and everything is just. I think she's really well designed, and the way her power works. Yeah, that was my favorite shot in the trailer, by the way. When
I kind of like to, this might be a little bit off base, but I kind of like to see not necessarily her as a character, but kind of like other than Portal, I'd like to see more of like video games with that kind of superpower. Like kind of remind me of the video game Portal.
Well, what they did is, I don't know if it's a direct reference, but I know exactly what it reminded me of, though. It feels like a Spider-Man pull-up. Spider-Man had this villain called The Spot, and it was a guy who basically looked like a Dalmatian almost, where he wore a white bodysuit and he had these black holes all over him, and he would throw the black holes off his body. And if Spider-Man would like to shoot a web, if it goes through, like Elastigirl and she throws a punch, you have this little void or this little black hole, and it would punch you out the other side where the next hole came out of.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, saying you were saying Void.
Oh yeah. I was speaking of Syndrome. I wish we would have gotten to hear a little more of Syndrome, because Bob never tells, or at least you never hear him explain to Helen or Dash about really why Syndrome hated him so much. Or really who he was. I'm sure he did at some point. We just never saw it. But
that's the thing. I think it just boils down to that, Sandy. That's in that 2 month before the track meet. It's something that happened there. They have to do it like right after the mission.
I really didn't like the way they and this is kind of just going way off topic. I'll make this quick. I didn't like how they mentioned specifically. Oh yeah, it blew up when the jet landed on the house. I don't like references like that. I think if they would have dug a little bit deeper into basically just mention Syndrome a little bit more, not just referencing certain parts of the previous film, like mentioning the island once, or we see the Omnidroid in the Devers presentation. I like that, but I think you guys know what I mean. I think a little more Syndrome mention would have been nice.
I hear you're saying it personally didn't bother me, but I get what you're saying though.
Yeah, it's more just a personal thing. I'm sure most people really don't care about that.
I mean,
It's kind of like I hope that Snug would get some kind of mention or cameo in this film. It's kind of like that, but on a bigger
I mean,
scale.
I'm pretty sure pretty much the only reason was like so the movie didn't seem too rooted in nostalgia.
What was that? What'd you say?
I said, I'm pretty sure like the only reason they did that is because like they wanted to focus on the story instead of like what happened before in the first movie, considering
Yeah.
it is an immediate sequel.
Yeah.
Like, not be too rooted in nostalgia. It's like, hey, remember this? We just did that.
Here's something I read into with Void before we move on, just to kind of like do quick name drops of the other supers here. Is that Void? She was a little reminiscent, especially with the power set. The whole like she kind of creates these little voids. Kind of creates something. It's a little reminiscent of Violet, and I kind of my own little headcanon, I guess, and something that I'm probably reading into this, but it's a what if. Maybe that's why Elastigirl kind of takes to her. She kind of sees like what her daughter could become in Void, or basically she's like kind of almost if she were to train Violet's kind of what she's doing kind of by proxy of Void, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah.
We see
Perhaps.
Void and kind of Violet kind of go at it for a couple rounds, and that was a really good fight, by the way. So, the portals and the force fields.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so of course our other supers kind of. I'm sorry, Sam, were you about to say something?
Oh no, nothing at all.
Then we have there are other supers. So we have Brick, who pretty much is like giant durability, giant brick powers. We had Electric. Now, Electric is actually voiced by Phil Lamar, and we have Phil Lamar doing two voices here for two characters, which is fun.
Excuse me. I did like Electric. I like that guy. That was a good one.
So that's Phil Lamar just kind of hamming it up as like basically. I felt like he was playing like a foreign supermodel of a superhero. That's kind of what Electric felt like to me.
It's kind of like him playing Hermes again.
Yeah, you're right. It is kind of. It's vaguely. It's like a runway Hermes almost.
It's like Hermes. Like it's hard to believe that that's also the same guy who voiced Samurai Jack.
Yeah,
It's amazing. It's just whenever you like and John Stewart and like all these Static Shock, and John Stewart, the same voice actor. Phil Lamar is wonderful. And we have a Crusher or Crushire. I guess it's just Crusher. It's spelled funny. Crusher, he has the telekinesis, mainly crushing. That's mainly his specialty. He has a great bit with Bob where he's saying, "What, you ever try to unpunch somebody?" That's also Lamar. Let's see, we got Screech. Screech basically owl powers and the shriek and like the weird head turning effect. Man, that's
that was pretty weird.
Yeah, it's an owl thing though. Then we have a reflux. Reflux, basically, it's acid reflux lava, which is such a bizarre. That one that's them having fun with a bizarre power. And it's like
he's like superpower, bizarre medical condition.
I gotta tell you though, what I really dug though is I loved how I don't know if it was just how Holly Hunter sold this or what, but I just love her like saying, "Oh, reflux, I get it." She's been really polite to reflux, and I appreciated that. Like, yeah.
I mean, I kind of like avoided like how they appreciated the void, how they avoided the potential gross out humor of that.
I know, yeah, they did it. It's pretty straightforward,
Now, Reflux is an old guy, so I'm wondering if he was one of the original supers. We just never got any mention of him, or what.
Well, all I can tell you is that out of like the 15 or possibly 20 supers that we got on the NSA files on the DVD, which basically all those NSA files are the ones that we see on the computer in the first movie, Reflux isn't there.
Yeah, it makes me think he
entirely
may have been.
I mean, it's entirely possible that he came into his powers recently, or just never decided to show anybody before.
Yeah, but he just thought he had really bad acid reflux. Oh my god, what's this burning? And then boom, problem.
He must have a very resilient throat.
Yeah. All right, so I guess with the super is all kind of underway. Let's talk about again. Where's my super suit? We can't do. We went through the super, and now we got to go through the suit.
I'm glad they never showed us what Honey looks like.
They almost did. They design turn. They made her into like a different character. In like the third act, we have all the other supers. Like she's there apparently, but they guess they just they kind of. It was funnier. They realized it was funnier as not seeing her. So that's kind of.
Are we not going to do Jack, or are we going to wait till Tiki comes back?
Oh my god, thank you, Jacob. Oh my god, it felt so ridiculous there. Yes, of course we're going to talk Jacob. My notes are a little. I had Jack Deck earlier in my structuring of the notes. I didn't look to my immediate other direction. Okay, yes. Jacob, take a lead on Jack.
I mean, maybe I kind of agree on a little, maybe just a tad bit that he was probably used too much, like Sandy said. But what we did get of him and what was there was top notch. The scenes with Edna, like when he was imitating Edna, the raccoon, all of that was just top notch top notch comedy.
Yes, Jack. I gotta tell you, he's the crowd favorite from every screening I've been at. Out of the two I've been in, just from what I heard, everybody loves Jack, and I gotta tell you, I love him too. And I think it taps into Brad Bird worked on The Simpsons, and I can't speak to this person. I don't know how much he worked with the Maggie Simpson character, and I'm not saying. For me, I never went to the Maggie Simpson comparison. I heard someone make that, and I kind of agree with it. Yeah, it kind of makes sense. If he worked on The Simpsons, he would have might put some of that kind of hyper intelligent baby mannerisms in there, like Jack. Of course, one of the big standout sequences with the raccoon.
I mean, heck,
he's kind of putting two in.
I mean, heck, they did want Brad Bird to direct the Simpsons movie.
Oh, really? Is that true?
Yeah, but like, he was too busy on Ratatouille, so they got David Silverman.
Sure. Oh my God, Brad Bird directed The Simpsons.
I like how they reused a lot of the original Jack sound effects.
Yeah, what they did is they use all the yeah, and you're absolutely right. Saying I didn't know that until today, honestly. That they use all of archival stuff with Jack, which is impressive. Which means that's I don't know if they specifically did this, but that's Tony Facili's son, one of the lead kind of character and one of the character supervisors, the animation supervising animator. Sorry. His son, I believe, was the baby when he was a kid. So he used all the little Facili's.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm not back, but I need to address that the Jack versus the raccoon scene is going to be taught in film schools. It's that good.
Oh, come on.
No, he has a point though. I mean, it's kind of animation 101.
I mean, and the slapstick and just the creativity at play, like just that is a standalone sequence, Sandy. It just is a standalone sequence.
It's a good sequence, but I mean, really, the film's come on.
It could be a short film all of itself.
I agree with Tiki's comparison in the sense of, again, if the building blocks of the scene, you could take the scene, you could break it down. I could buy like the film school thing, just how the breakdown of that scene goes, and just seeing the whole, again, it feels like almost like a Maggie Simpson short film, like a clip like that. There was actually a short.
All right, guys, I'm sorry. Thanks for bearing with me. You guys are doing a great job, but I'm kind of dealing with some family drama right now, so just about it. I'm gonna try and get back for Edna, and then I'm basically gonna be on kind of sporadically. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for kind of covering the lead on this.
Anyway, let's see.
The raccoon scene is definitely like top notch comedy right there. Like no one everyone in the theater was laughing extremely loudly. That's like. It's like some people almost felt bad for the raccoon though.
Oh, absolutely, they did. I mean, that moment where the score. I mean, this is where the Giacchino score is like. So the Giacchino score is the mentioned briefly here. We should probably say it for listeners real quick. Is that I think the Giacchino score is the first movie is iconic with the score. This movie it continues the momentum as the movie in the whole does. Where again, it's continuing the momentum. It's kind of some new. It's having fun with the music, then kind of trying to reinvent the wheel with the music. And we have that in this sequence here. We have like kind of that as Jack is learning and kind of like experimenting with his powers here. We kind of hear that in the score here, and we have that moment where the raccoon freaks out, where he sees Jack light on fire, and that scene that's a big laugh. It's a great moment. That's the big turn in the scene that it's so much fun.
I will say that raccoon can take one heck of a beating. I will say that.
Have you ever seen Guardians of the Galaxy? Sandy, raccoons are
of course. But I mean, this is not some blaster wielding space fighter.
Yeah, you're right. I'm kidding you, but I did imagine though if Rocket were watching this in the theater, would have like that end tier from Guardians Volume 2, where he's let him realize, like, oh my God, it's so horrible. What's happening here?
And speaking of like how we mentioned earlier, like the facial animations on the humans, like look at the facial animations on this thing.
Yeah,
it's very cartoony.
I mean, look at the image right here that we're showing. That's a total oh crap face if we ever seen one.
So again, with that whole scene, again, I love that cognitively we're seeing Jack. I love that he connects the family fighting criminals, fighting crime, is watching an old movie where there's a robber, and he puts like the two and two together. I love seeing him visually put two and two together than target the raccoon, as like he's emulating the family. And one of the things I think Brad Bird has kind of said in interviews I absolutely think is brilliant is that he acts, again, it's a no-brainer that he acts like a baby, and that's what we see him developing his power set, but he's random and scatterbrained, has these random scatterbrained impulses like an infant. Like he has these very simple wants, like he wants cookies, he wants mom, he wants to fight bad guys. Like, those are the main three kind of things. Like he'll be distracted like an infant would be, and he sees Helen on the TV, he wants her, and then of course later on when he kind of gets through to her, it's because he's missing mom. So yeah, it's a really good kind of practical staging with if you're going to do a baby. I think if you're going to do anything with a baby, I think they did it right in this movie. It's like, yeah, that's how you make the baby kind of the standout.
He's kind of like the baby Groot of this movie. Like he's like the thing that like ties the family together almost.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't think of that. You're absolutely right. Yeah, there's there's a little bit of baby Groot there, which again, just Brad Bird's hitting, kind of tapping into the zeitgeist of it all. They're like, yeah, people like babies without years in advance before baby Groot's even there.
but like
I think they focus too much on Jack personally, and I know I'm not the only one who feels that way. I mean, I think Jack, like I feel like every other scene is something with Jack. Of course, if we're gonna get a scene with Bob, we're going to get a scene with Jack. It's undeniable, but I just feel like he took up too much of the movie, and I feel like this is more just fan service, if nothing else.
One of my favorite small moments though is when he wakes Bob up while he's reading the book.
Oh yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I like Jack just as much as the next guy, but I mean, I feel he got too much screen time.
I would argue the only thing I would argue with that scene, I get what you're saying. The only thing I would argue with that though is that Jack, he's really never, for him. Basically, it would be given too much screen time if he was alone doing things, but he's always paired with somebody. And because of that, I don't think we waste too much. Well, they're not waste. That's a bad choice. I don't think we spend too much time on him. Where, again, like he's paired with Edna very famously, and we'll get there. Paired with Bob for the majority of the movie, and that's Bob's challenge. He's with the kids when the kids kind of need like a secret weapon. Their secret weapon, again, kind of like how a Marvel movie, like, we get the Civil War, Giant Man, we get something like that. And that's kind of what we get with Jack. He's kind of the X Factor in a way. He's almost like a Teddy Newton special to kind of cite Teddy Newton for a moment. Like, I'm sure, because he loves the moment with the Jack here, I'm sure Teddy Newton came up with a lot of these Jack ideas. I can feel it in my bones. So yeah, Jack, he's definitely it's fun, but I get your point. That he's definitely what the movie really sold on in many respects, and maybe in that regard, he's over spent a little bit too much time with him. I don't know.
I will say one thing. Seeing the raccoon on the poster and just how much she was being advertised, they even made a McDonald's toy out of him. So I thought for sure this is going to be like some kind of like goofy household comedic relief pet that the parts of like adopted or something. I'm so glad he was only in one scene and we only get one good chunk of really good material with him, because I mean my hopes I didn't have much hope for the raccoon going in, like I said,
because we've seen it so many times in animated movies where they try to make kind of like the kid and the animal. Basically, they always try to sell like a surrogate pet thing, or they always try to sell you like, hey, here's a cutesy animal.
Exactly.
So you're absolutely right. That could have gone wrong very easily. So okay, so unless I'm forgetting anything again, let's get to the suits.
All right.
Winston
Dever. So, oh my God, I adore Bob Odenkirk on a regular basis. So I was very happy with Winston Dever in this movie. Odenkirk, he's great, but what I really thought was refreshing, really great. He's kind of playing. A lot of people would say he's playing Saul Goodman, and they're not wrong. He's definitely a salesman like Saul Goodman, but importantly. And there's like a deep cut Better Call Saul. I'll keep it to a minimum here, but let's just say he has a genuine soul like the early Jimmy McGill, let's say, from Better Call Saul. He's very much like before he becomes Saul Goodman. He was a much kind of nicer, more moral guy, and we definitely kind of see that here. Where I love that Dever could have easily been just kind of like a Mowgli. Could have been like what we did in Cars 3 with, and I don't mean this in a negative way. It's like we did in Cars 3 with the Nathan Fillion character, Sterling, Mr. Sterling, where he's a businessman, and that's about it. Or no, we do get a lot of connection with the supers. We do a lot of great character stuff with Winston, and he does have kind of the Odenkirk charm and delivery of like, yeah, this guy's fun. He's got these sell points, and he's he's the salesman. The sister's the moneymaker with the inventions. That's what it boils down to.
I liked how honestly, I'm sure there were a lot of people going into the movie expecting Winston to be the villain. Even of course, even myself at a time thought he would be the villain. But I liked how they ended up displaying him as the the kind of fanboy, rich fanboy.
Another kind of syndrome thing.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah,
oh my God, yes, he is kind of like another syndrome, kind of like on a lighter path in a way.
Yeah, I mean he's he's the same age as all the supers there. He's got money, and he's he's basically just spoiling all of them and showing them a good time. And yeah, I like how they made him kind of, for lack of a better word, kind of daft in the fact that he's definitely not doesn't his brain doesn't operate on the same kind of scale that his sisters does, and I like how they play with that.
Yeah, he's the people person, and we see that in effect where Ian, the supers love him. Like, he's actually with the coolest guy in the room with Frozen. He's actually kind of charming them by like singing the theme song, which ordinarily you'd think would never fly with a guy that cool. And it's like, no, he's just so charming. He's even got under Lucius's skin there.
It's pretty much just genuine enthusiasm.
Exactly, and I love the idea they propel in the movie. I love all these subtle things that we do with Deborah, and we'll get to more so that when we get to like the villain stuff. But I really do like that he's trying to honor and continue. He's honoring his parents' legacy. He's honoring his father's legacy and like their reliance and love of supers. And in a way, he's trying to connect with his parents by helping supers. Basically, the whole, again, it's a simplistic view, but it's an optimistic view, and I really like that optimism where it's like, hey. He is trying to connect to the past, and he's trying to basically he can fill the emptiness and the tragedy of what happened to his parents.
Yeah.
By kind of bringing back supers, because supers and his parents were like kind of that they were existed simultaneously, and when one went away, the other one went away. So that was one of my for me that was one of the smartest ideas in the movie that I really loved. And it's so funny that with this optimistic view and literally with the whole the hotline of it all, the symbol of like the hotlines to the supers, very much he kind of comes from a lineage of Jim Gordon types, like supers that had dynamics with kind of like that business sort of like kind of that government kind of side of things where there was a reliance there and there was a dependability and there was a danger in that. And again, it's kind of like the whole Gordon Batman thing. He called it like the 60s Batman to kind of go the whole 60s setting of The Incredibles, like the quasi 60s setting of The Incredibles, where you call the hotline super shows up, and there's definitely a danger that we'll allude to a little later on.
And didn't his dad like one of the ones that like raised the statues, like was it Dyna Guy?
Yes, Dyna Guy. Yes, you're right.
Like probably for like his memorial after he snagged his cape or something.
Yeah, I know exactly. They used the same pose from him where he snagged his cape too. He's like, "Dad, insult injury." Again, that's kind of a good message of like his heart's in the right place, but he's not seeing the irony here. so again, he's this likable. He's the likable salesman who remains true blue. I like in the end, he could easily just kind of roll with the punches and just kind of be opportunistic, but he's not. He's sticking with like, I gotta save these people. Again, he's trying to celebrate what his parents believed in. And there is this great question that we'll definitely dive into more when we get further into it. There's this question of, are there certain people, if certain people had superpowers, they could use it. Basically, it could turn disastrous. And there's a question raised with Dever. While he's a nice guy, and his heart is in the right place. If you gave this guy this power, again, if a guy's a salesman, you give him this power of like the ultimate yes man, the ultimate yes man, foot in the door solution to any salesman, or is he? You can mind control people into doing what you want. That's a dangerous tool to put in that guy's head. It's like certain people shouldn't have superpowers, and I think that's kind of an idea we flirt with Winston. He's like, this is a guy who shouldn't have superpowers, but by all means, he should help the guys with superpowers.
What was
Because seems like he doesn't even want superpowers. He's
exactly. He doesn't need that. But again, if he knew though, would he remain that way?
Yeah.
You know what they say about absolute power?
I know. Yeah.
So I just realized that in the first movie we see Dyna Guy and Stratogale. We see them at Bob and Helen's wedding. sitting in the seats. It makes me wonder that must have all their tragic deaths must have happened after that, but that was the same night that that Bob rescued that guy from suicide, and the whole thing went downhill. So I'm guessing, obviously assuming it must have happened afterwards.
Are you suggesting that they were all busy at the wedding when they could have been saving other people? Is that what you're getting at?
No. I'm just saying
I think what he's implying is that it's like somehow Dinah Guy's accident happened after the wedding.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, remember, it's a 15-year time gap, so it's probably happened within those 15 years.
I know, but superheroes were banned. How could he be out in public, doing
no, they were banned. There was a period of...
The banning wasn't exactly overnight, though.
Remember, at the wedding, like, they say, like, yeah, we're supers. What could happen? Then basically a number of incidents happen, so probably one of those incidents is, like, when, like, before the supers got banned. Like, remember, have all the newspapers and a little montage that happens. So basically, within that montage, that's when Dinah Guy died.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, right. So let's talk Evelyn.
Yeah.
Let's not get too into Evelyn quite yet, but let's just kind of go with the surface stuff we have with Evelyn. So
I thought she was quite interesting. I mean, like, she's like how she didn't want to be in the spotlight like her brother was.
Yeah, I love how opposite she is from her brother. Now again, he's the people person. She's very much the hardware and the mechanics and the designer. She's kind of she's a brilliant inventor, and I love this very casual. Like, I love her fashion sense, and we have this. She's very just kind of like she just woke up because she's been spent the whole night inventing stuff. There's those little touches that really go a long way.
A lot of times, though, she almost looked hungover.
Exactly. Like, she has like the coffee, and she's dropping everything. Yeah.
I know it's supposed to be tired. It's supposed to be like she's tired, but it's Brad Bird, so you never really know.
Yeah, it's quite possible. And we do have drinking in the movie, and she does offer Elastigirl a few drinks in the movie.
So it's entirely possible that, she's hammered most of the time.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, she's operating a little. I'm sorry, Sandy, go on.
I was going to say how disappointed I was to not necessarily. I'm fine with her being the villain. I really am. They revealed it much, much, much too soon, and that I'm not comfortable with.
Well, again, I'll say that for when you talk about the reveal itself. Yeah, I got some things to say about that, but let me say this. I like that Evelyn. I feel she almost sells you on being fully on Elastigirl's side. And the minute we do that, that's when we have we see a friendship develop, which I think is interesting, knowing what we know about Evelyn now. It's like, there was kind of friendship developing between her and Helen.
Yeah, and it could have developed so much further had they not revealed it. I'm sorry, I keep going back to the reveal. I'm sorry. Keep going.
Okay, well, I'll say later if there's anything else with Evelyn real quick here. Is that So again, I like that. Basically, I'll say that I think I'd like that she sees potential in Elastigirl, and then throughout the movie, in the beginning, Evelyn makes her points about. She makes no bones about how she feels, and that she's helping out in her brother's endeavor. She's very supportive of her brother. She does have a love for her brother, but by the same token, she does not see the world the way he does, and that's what kind of drives a line in the sand and really kind of splits her to go in a different way with it. She's cynical yet has that supportive dynamic. So again, Evelyn, on the surface, it's
kind of like a black and white yin and yang kind of thing.
Yes, and you kind of, in a way, they are kind of not. I'm sorry, Jake, since you brought up, I can't kind of stop thinking of it. In a way, they are kind of a syndrome, but kind of divided and kind of an offshoot where Syndrome would have been in life had he not been consumed. Basically, if Syndrome moved forward, but still both. Basically, if we divided Syndrome like two potential paths, if he got over everything, he was still in support of superheroes, he could have been Winston. If he went the other way with it, but kind of cultivated his plan over the years, without just thinking oh, I got to get specifically Mr. Incredible's my crowning achievement, it would have he could have been Evelyn. So that's interesting.
And minor tidbit, she's actually one of the few people to curse twice in a Pixar movie.
Yes, honestly, the most curse. Technically, again, I'm cursing in a loose sense here, folks. But I mean, probably the most cursing we've had in any Pixar film, because we've had hell mentioned twice once in Ratatouille and once in the first Cars, and this movie kind of has all as three.
Wait, the first Cars movie mentioned hell?
Yes.
In what context?
When Lightning McQueen was like when those passersby came in, and he was like pulling the car thing to fix the road. He's like, "I'm in hillbilly hell."
Oh,
That was the first time, and then you get Ratatouille, where Skinner says, "Welcome to hell."
oh, okay.
And then here's like they mention hell, and then like or what the hell or whatever, and then this and it's like, well, I'll be damned.
Yep, so that's a first.
Well, yeah, like people are saying, The Incredibles 2 is definitely more of an adult movie, so it makes sense they'd include it.
I mean, it caught me by surprise. I mean, it just caught me by surprise because usually they don't go for the thing, but Brad Bird. I mean, it's another Brad Bird thing, so.
Oh yeah. Okay, so real briefly, we'll cover the ambassadors. There's not really a whole lot with the ambassador, but she's.
Do we really need to cover the ambassadors? I mean, I really don't feel that they're. But what are you gonna say? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, it's like one sentence thing just to address her. She's played by the girl from Blue Velvet.
Isabella Rossellini or something?
Yes, Isabella Rossellini. Thank you. Yes, I really like the bond with her and Elastigirl and that helicopter save and everything. We're just it's like this one ambassador who's basically we see the ambassador as a big supporter, and there's this great in the great long con of it all. We do see the ambassador set up as hey, she's really in support of supers, and again she's kind of ushering in the whole big signing event. So it's like kind of like breadcrumbs through like just genuine Elastigirl saving people and like winning support, just kind of doing her thing. So it's like as the ambassador's like, hey, it's finally after all that stuff we had in the first Incredibles, finally some people in favor of supers. How nice is that?
They're probably not as impressive as the train sequence. Or maybe even, and all that. I still think that the helicopter saving is still like quite an impressive action sequence.
Yep. Okay. All right. I guess we'll get to the. You guys want to build to Edna, or do you want to?
No, we don't need to build. Edna played a very small role in this movie. I don't think we need to build to her.
All right. So Edna. So she was. I love how offended Edna is, and I love how Bob called this that, oh my god, you're going to have to explain your new super suit to E.
Yeah.
Not going to be happy. And I like that, Edna's...
He's wearing a suit by Galbaki.
Good. So it's a fun... I like that she didn't overstay her welcome. I like that it didn't feel like oh, we have to have her in there because she was a beloved character. It just felt like naturally, she's kind of like the cue for kind of the Bond comparison here. She designs all the super suits, and we have a problem with Jack. Jack, how the heck do you get a hold of this kid? It's a story. It solves a story problem in a great way of she's she'd be we not just solve a problem, but we kind of advance the character a little too. She becomes anti-Edna.
Well, at first, when Jack started copying Edna, I was like, oh no, she's created a monster.
I mean, honestly, it gets summed up with that moment where she discovers Jack's powers, and she just says this moment where it just feels like classic E, where she just says yes.
Pretty much previously she got to design for heroes that only had one power. Here she gets to design one with 17.
Yeah, so again, she loves the power challenge, and she kind of connects with Jack there. And again, I like that because we did establish Jack does have a taste for Mozart, and now in Jack Attack, and we see there's a bond, there's an artsy bond between these two, which is nice. And she just takes to him so well, and it's adorable. And in a very natural way, it's her becoming closer to the Parr family, less in the business context, which is by all means fine. But we plus it by not only that she just has designed the suits for them for years, but she's but she's also kind of like a little member of the family. She's
basically all summed up by the last time you see her. Almost it's like by being exclusive designers and all that. And they're like, but this I'll do for free.
I know, yes, and I appreciate and I like that we didn't oversell Edna. I think we used her just the right amount of time.
Yeah, and she's such a popular character that makes it even stronger that they didn't oversell her. That's really great.
Yeah, and of course it's Brad Bird just having a blast too, I imagine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Doing the voice, and he does that voice so perfectly. Of course, it's his voice, but it's kind of that German, that vaguely German-Japanese mixture. What he's doing there with the whole Milan, darling, Milan. It's fire, Robert.
Yes.
I just love she's pushing him out okay, you go. You need rest.
At first she's like, how dare you pawn this baby onto me? And then when she learns the power, like, oh god, I got it. That Edna's got it.
We can say a lot of nice things about E, but let's get to Rick Dicker.
again, not much to do and not much to talk about here.
No, but of course, Rick Digger's the mentioned brief. Of course, Bud Lucky, he's left this world, unfortunately, which means we had to get a new voice for Rick Digger, but we got a great actor.
Technically, he was like fully voiced before Bud Lucky even died, though.
Wait, what?
Yeah, Rick Digger. I mean, Bud Lucky just died this year.
Well, I know that, but I mean, he retired in 2014, and he was getting a little sick, so they couldn't really get him to do the voice. But I mean, are you telling me that they actually recorded the whole movie with him?
No, I mean, no. What I'm saying is, I thought you meant something else.
No, that's what I meant. I mean, he had retired and he gotten sick, and so basically, he was unable to do the voice while they were making, and then he died this year. So again, regardless, it was still
okay. Sorry, that was my misunderstanding.
No problem. No problem. The point is, we got Jonathan.
This is kind of random, but do you guys notice Bud Lucky Buddy syndrome? Coincidence, maybe?
I don't know. I mean, he was on the movie. So I don't know.
Coincidence? Yes.
I think not.
All right, so we have the wonderful Jonathan Banks. We get a fantastic actor to play Rick Digger, and yes, it's different, but I mean, come on, it's Jonathan Banks. You can't do any. It's Mike Ehrmantraut, guys. You can't do any better.
It's actually one of the more noticeable voice changes.
Yeah, but again, I kind of added even more dimension to Rick Digger here. Is that Rick Digger? He's different, but he's wonderful, and that
technically he does get a bit more lines in this movie than he did in the first one.
He does, and again, I still love the lines we got in the first movie. And again, there was I always cite that one moment where we did the Bud Lucky tribute, and I always say that moment where he's kind of money, Bob, and then he goes in the elevator and he stops, Bob, for old time's sake. He had that great warmth to him while being kind of a grizzled, tired government worker here. And Rick Digger, I think Brad Bird hit it on the head of how he describes the voice change. That Jonathan Banks is Rick Digger. It feels like the original Rick Digger, he's a government worker, but Jonathan Banks is Rick Digger. As Jonathan Banks does with many of his characters, you believe this guy has probably gotten rid of a few bodies over the years. And you absolutely buy it here. But I love that what Jonathan Banks does best here is that he basically plays Dicker as a fixer, where as he's played with characters like Mike Ehrmantraut and other characters, basically guys who they're kind of silent, they're very men of few words who get things done and fix problems. And essentially, it's kind of what Rick Dicker is in this movie. He's more than the frustrated friend that we got in the first movie. He's a guy with a long history. He knows exactly what he's doing. He knows how to do the whole mind wiper thing. And I love that. By the same token, we do get a little bit of dimension here, where he's a great friend to the family. Where he says, "Guys, I wish I could do more here, but I can only give you 2 more weeks in the motel." And it's like, "Thanks, Rick, for all you've done." And later on, he's in the Hawaiian shirt with the Tiki mug and everything. It's like Rick Dicker in retirement. But in that scene and with the opening,
I wonder if this means by the end of the movie he gets his job back.
Oh, he does. I mean, they imply that he does. You're right. We don't know for certain, but I think it's a safe bet that they'll put him in the next one.
If we're going to talk about the ambassadors, we're going to go, I guess, to characters obscure. Should we talk about Tony, or is there not really much to say?
Well, I thought we were going to work Tony into the pros and cons. We're going to talk about the opening.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll get there. With that, though, I will say this: I do like with Rick Dicker. I love that. Again, we have this. He likes the kid. I like that he liked Tony Ridinger. He says, seemed like a nice kid. I like that great softness. That's the thing that Banks conveys all the time with his characters, this lovely balance of he's a tough, scary guy, but at the same time he's this warm teddy bear on the inside. He's a good yet scary guy. He approves of the choice. He didn't mean to erase the kid's whole memory. He just wanted to erase that one day. By the way, that's the thing. That was literally the intention. But it's not an exact science, Bob. Sorry. He apologizes.
No, but he doesn't remember Violet at all. I mean, if you remember, he doesn't remember who she even is. So
you're right. Yeah, he doesn't. He overshot it because again, it's not an exact science.
It makes me wonder what happened to Kari after that. I'm guessing she went back to high school, but we never see her. We should have seen her. We should have seen her in this movie, at least in the background or something.
Yeah, you're right. But I think honestly, the only reason again, I think it's another story.
Maybe if they do another short like they did with Jack Attack, maybe they'll just delve into that a bit more.
That'd be great. I would love a scene just where Kari just like sees Jack having her memory erased, and there's that tension of like maybe Bob knows, and he's just like, "Oh, let's get you out of here, Kari."
It's like maybe she just like she like why does it sound familiar? Or, like why am I feeling so tense about
Like
this?
she plays
Or maybe
Mozart, and Bob rushes her out the door.
or maybe she would mention like, so how'd that new babysitter work out for you?
Can't have go around with a big BS on my chest. By the way, that was a recorded line. There was like an extra line they had that they reused for that. By the way, it's the whole like it's a BS, you know.
Like you could understand why I wouldn't go around with that.
That's still funny. All right, okay. So I think it's pretty right now. It's pretty good on Rick Dicker. I think I think good old Rick Dicker. All right, so with that said, let's talk about the big meat and potatoes of it all. This is the big divisive thing in the movie. This is the thing where a lot of people, comparing the first movie, second movie, this is the big kind of dividing line in the sand. Let's talk about the villain reveal. How do we feel?
Villain reveal.
Let's discuss.
You know how I feel about that. Like I said before, they revealed the villain way too early. I'll tell you one thing. When Elastigirl had the idea to track the screenslaver down via the sound waves or whatever it was, and when she was scaling the city, trying to find this apartment, this building, I got to be honest, my back was sweating because I was like, okay, this is like one of the big villain scenes here. We're gonna see who this villain is, or we're gonna see a fight. This is gonna be really, really cool.
Well, easily, this is probably my favorite scene in the whole movie. My favorite sequence in the whole film. This whole like the fight, the chase, the whole shebang, the whole plan, and everything. So I'm with you absolutely on this scene.
And I will tell you this because I would have really, really liked the screenslaver had they actually made him a separate character, not Evelyn. And I'll tell you why, because we see him, we see where he lives, we see that it's this kind of crappy apartment, but we have all these amazing technical gadgets and all this genius stuff around, and it seems like I think that'd make a really interesting character. This like what if it really was the pizza guy? Like what if like this pizza guy genius who's trying to take over the world or something like that? I think it's a really interesting concept, and you can make the argument that's like Buddy, but at the same time it's not, because Buddy obviously had a lot more under his. What were you saying, Jacob?
But honestly, if they think they did that, they would have had like too many characters to deal with. Like, because they did have to show like who he is. Like, then pretty much they have too many characters already, and didn't. I had to feel like it kind of would be like another Syndrome. It's like, oh, he's like doing this and he's doing that, except he's like basically be Syndrome, except he doesn't own an island.
Yeah, I see what you mean. And really, besides all that, even if they didn't do that, which of course they didn't, I mean, I think the reveal is just that it came way too soon. We didn't get enough of the actual screenslaver that was advertised. It was mostly just Evelyn, no cool costume. The only gadget we really see from her in her villain form is her goggles, and it's really not that cool. It's really not interesting. With Syndrome, we get so many cool gadgets. We get his 0-point energy powers, his gauntlets. We get, of course, the
glue balls, all the inventions. It's all great.
Exactly. The robots. With her, it's nothing special. I mean, it's some goggles that make you like hypnotizing goggles. It's not that cool.
All right,
and of course, no costume to boot, like I said, and it doesn't help at all.
All right, let me say this. So I think overall, what the simple way of explaining is that they did kind of the Mandarin here. I think they did a more clever version of the Mandarin from Iron Man 3 here, where it's a thing people were kind of in uproar about. Like they didn't do the straight Mandarin, but they did kind of the idea of a villain. I think we did that here, but I'm in favor of it. And I'll say this though, I'll give you this though, that at the end of the day, of course, no, it does not surpass Syndrome. It doesn't. It's not trying to. Is that in a way? So. Yeah, I'm going to be in favor of Syndrome, but she is Helen's Syndrome. See, with Bob and Syndrome, Bob and Buddy, you have kind of this glory days and sidekicks day for the supers. I mean, that's what he reflects. He ties directly into Mr. Incredible. He's like kind of the sidekick gone rogue. He again ties in like that whole Bob's main story of trying to relive the glory days. He's a huge. That's that story. That's the first movie story. This movie, though, you have Evelyn. Now, Evelyn the whole story of the movie in regards to the Helen versus Devlin / the screenslaver. It's about the political gray, again, that flexible territory that Elastigirl is going up against, where it's kind of the ethical questions of supers. Where the first movie is a question of what makes somebody super. The second movie is about why do sorry, I'm trying to forget. So again, the first movie is about what makes somebody super, and the other one's like, do we need supers? Do we need supers? Is kind of that question. And I mean, with the screenslaver identity, you have a really cool design and a neat gimmick. Again, with what we were presented as that kind of that false facade, it's a great false facade. About the overdependence of screens, like the screensaver goes on this whole monologue about people are they're living vicariously through others' experiences, like they won't do things in the real world, but they'll watch things on screens. And I like that thematically, this does somewhat connect with Evelyn's true motivation. We'll build to the true motivation here, but it's. Going into this, the marketing was like it was going to be one of the Devers. We kind of knew that going into it, so it was kind of a shell game. So in terms of like how impressive a reveal it is, I mean, Evelyn's just kind of a whole evil kind of gag there, which most likely was going to be her. But I like that both of them had like an equal motivation with the backstory that we got. Like, okay, they both have a big tie, but they both want this different way with it. And the only big extra reveal he would have had is like, hey, Winston, he's like we thought he was a good guy, but in reality, he's trying to control people for the greater good, and we kind of do that with Evelyn from a very understandable point of view. Where hey, my parents believed in supers. We examined the overdependence question with superheroes, which is something we do with Superman. We're like if we have a Superman in the real world, that just solves all the world's problems, and then like the minute Superman gets killed or like taken out of the equation, then the world goes the heck. If we take them out of the equation, like we crippled ourselves by not solving our own problems, and you also have a bit of that Batman question of do superheroes create villains and create trouble? And I think we explore those questions here with the motivation. Is it again, like it's the kind of thing that got her parents killed specifically was they trusted in the spectacular, and as I think Evelyn does in that great reveal scene where Elastigirl's frozen to the chair and everything, she tells her the motivations and the why and the plan. She monologues, to quote the first movie. She basically says, you don't know me. Why you trust me? Because I gave you, because I gave you gadgets, because I gave you an Elasticycle. That doesn't make us friends. You don't know anything about me. And she raises an excellent point. The fact that she's not a people person like her brother is why she has that mentality that, if she's not wrong, that if her parents went into the safe room, they would be alive. She would, father would be alive, and he went to go to the phones of like a bygone era of like, hey, hopefully the people I trust because they're the good guys, they're going to show up. Or, there's also cops. There's also safe rooms. There are other options, but again, over dependence. So that's kind of what Evelyn's really coming at the movie with.
That still doesn't change the fact that the reveal came way too early.
I don't know how. Again, it's like it's not really in the middle of the movie. That would be too early. It's like it gets us into the third act. I don't know how early that is, Sandy.
If it was any later, it would have been like almost seemed like too forced.
It would have meant less if it came at the very last minute. I feel. I mean, you can only delay a reveal so long.
You're right. I guess I gotta see the movie again. But I feel like I was paying very close attention the first time I saw it. I guess maybe I wasn't. I'm not sure.
I mean, we can understand your grievances with it. I mean, I can understand all that, but it's just like from understanding from Brad Bird's like storytelling perspective, it'd be kind of like it would cheapen the story to either like reveal it way too early or way too late. It's like that's always like the hardest thing in these like villain reveals. It's like you have to pick the right time.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess one of the things I just didn't like mostly was how they went from this really cool, interesting looking villain to just this complete, just non-interesting looking, nothing really special about you type of villain.
Sorry, go on.
That's pretty much it, really. I think I was gonna say. I don't know. What were you gonna say?
Let me raise this point, Sandy. Is that if we did Syndrome so perfectly, anything we did, it might be hard to live up to that. Where again, we went a really different direction with the villain, where it's about like the bells and whistles of attempting another Syndrome of like it's the idea of like we need the supers to go up against somebody who's going to get defeated, and again would be kind of seems like a one and done case.
And even Syndrome mentioned like if everyone's special, no one is.
So it's kind of Bird kind of looking at the whole like it's like we could just do another Syndrome, but then it would just be something directly. I mean, at the end of the day, kind of again, it's a no-win situation at the end. But I think I see the intention Bird was going for here, where it's like, hey, it's we can try to measure up the Syndrome. We're going to fail, so we're going to do something kind of different, a little bit more, a little bit again go in a different direction. It's about the idea of a villain than a villain itself. And honestly, what Evelyn's trying to do here, I definitely rewatch a lot of this kind of occurs to you. So again, maybe that might get the gears moving a little bit on this. Saying on a rewatch, you might really find some cool stuff like this. Where I like that she's kind of trying to help in an Ozymandias way, where she's telling people she's doing all this to help the world and like see that supers aren't a fix. Again, she's not wrong that we should be able to handle our own problems, but she's not necessarily wrong that supers are going to fix all the problems. And I think the big irony of the movie is that she to make all this happen, to prove her point, she had all this supervillain level tech at her disposal. And I don't mean like in the flashy, awesome gadget way that Syndrome had, but I just mean the fact that she had very effective hypnosis at her disposal that she used to make all this happen. And she had too much power. And that unbalanced her argument. That's why she's kind of wrong at the end of the day. But again, how wrong is she? It's the fact she kind of undercut her own argument about we don't need supers, but to do that, you had to become a villain to prove that point. We don't need supers.
I guess so. Just something else that ties into that is that that bit where the brainwashed superheroes with the goggles on, they're on television saying to the world how they're gonna overthrow all this stuff, and how that is immediately forgotten about. Like the second they save the day, like it's never even questioned, it's never brought up again. That's just a throwaway bit that I feel. It's like what?
No, I'm saying I absolutely do not agree. Sorry, I absolutely agree with. Sorry, I'm trying to figure my phrasing here. I'm in agreement with you on that. That there is an issue there. And that's what separates me from going like the full 100% with you use every part of the Buffalo. That's my biggest problem with the movie, which we'll dive into a little when we get to cons. But it's something that really. It could have been landed better, and we don't acknowledge it. And the fact we don't acknowledge it is glaring. So I agree with you on that point. Yes.
And on top of that, I just feel the climax in general was really it just wasn't all it could be. Like when I think of with the original movie, like the big ending punch was the Omnidroid groans, it falls over in the lake and explodes. It's like the big final punch in the climax, or at least in that segment. Of course, we get Syndrome afterwards with the jet exploding and everything. But with this, it's just Syndrome uses his snow powers. He stops the ship from crashing into the city, and that's pretty much it. I don't feel there's any big punch we get like in the original film. Which I mean, having that. It's not copying, it's not copying your work or someone else's work. It just seems like a law that you like, especially in superhero films, you should have one big final punch at the end, just it's just a send off, and I don't never felt that at all.
I don't know. It was a really spectacular save, though, where he made he turned this giant wave into a giant kind of snow cushion. That was impressive, though, and I think the moment in the score reflected that. It was like this big. Again, they all worked together for this big save in the end. It was a save more than the disruptions.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know, but I mean, if it's, I mean, really, at the end of the day, Frozone is the one that really saved the day. I mean. Yeah, Bob turned the rudder a little bit, but that wouldn't have stopped the ship from crashing into the city. I mean, for all Frozen did was use his snow powers, and stop the boat. It's not nearly as impactful as it was in the original movie.
All right, I guess we'll
I mean,
agree.
we with Syndrome we get Syndrome's awesome death sucked into his own jet via his cape, which is Edna had warned Bob about. Not that the irony of that, but the explosion and the almond droid exploding. It just doesn't seem to hold up. It just doesn't seem to. This doesn't seem to hold up to that. And that's why I left the theater thinking, wow, it seemed like the villain was just getting started when it ended, and it didn't feel right to me.
Well, again, I won't fully disagree with you on that. Saying again, that's what I'm saying. I think that just less. Yeah, I like what happens, but I think thematically, I think we're on the same page thematically. There's something missing in that. I'll give you that much.
Yeah.
And we'll get into the specifics momentarily. But one last thing I want to mention about the reveal. Well, just in general, the screensaver, the whole thing. Is that the really interesting thing on a rewatch though is I really love that you get to see in the friendship that is developing. Well, Evelyn, doesn't consider herself a people person. She does genuinely. We kind of serve a feminist thing, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm just saying, Elastigirl again. She's kind of a Wonder Woman icon in this world, and we have this thing that again, I don't know if it's just like something they kind of lucked into with this, or if it was very intentional, but. Evelyn compliments Elastigirl a lot, and I don't think that's just her throwing off suspicion. The way it's conveyed, I think she really means that. That you know what, if more supers were like you, I feel my parents might be alive. I think that's kind of what they're communicating there, where she wants supers to be accountable and smart. And again, Elastigirl being a hero who was like willing to go into hiding if it meant for the betterment of her family. And again, it's like kind of making the smart choice, which I think Evelyn respects on some level. So thematically, we tie. It
definitely falls more into like she's blaming them for her father's mistake, though.
Yes, and that's the thing. She's kind of at war with that because she grows to like Elastigirl. By the same token, she hates what Elastigirl kind of represents and kind of ties into there. Where again, it's like she's all about you with the screenslaver is a bit of a tie to the technology of like we live vicariously through our technology, in that we don't have a real level of trust there. We only trust what we see. We don't trust what we know because we don't know anything because we're just watching it. So again, I like that the screenslaver is kind of an acorn that kind of grew into a tree from that core idea where she doesn't put trust into non-personal relationships.
Yeah, we should probably get going here because I need to get some sleep. And
okay, right. Let's hit some pros and cons here. So let's pros. Let's real quick with the pros. We got to hit like kind of the opening scenes. Any Underminer stuff you guys want to hit?
I love the Underminer. Like the first, we got 5 minutes, like not even 5 minutes worth of screen time from the Underminer. That was very, very, very disheartening because. Like that's what the ending of the first movie built on. Like, okay, this is what the second movie is going to be about. This is how it's going to start off. And I the Underminer gets away. I thought, okay, yeah, he gets away. We're going to see him later on. Obviously, I mean, because he just seemed like such a great character. John Ratzenberger, of course, doing the voice. He gave it such a. I'm not even sure how to describe it. The character just seemed super, super. Right, I guess.
Basically, the Underminer is played in voice, but also in like kind of his actions and the whole gimmick. He's very much like the Mole Man from the Fantastic Four, but not even with a direct comparison. What's so cool about him is that he has this classic feel about him, where he feels like he's a very simple villain. He's just he digs underground. He looks kind of like a mole guy, and he wants money. He's a bank robber, but he's the most over the top bank robber ever.
Yeah, exactly.
He steals the whole bank.
Talk about bringing the bank to you.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, what's in your wall? Look at my backyard. Look at this.
Talk about breaking the bank. You're right, Dragon. He's a classic villain, and that's what I like about him because he's a classic villain. I feel this movie needed more of that type of villain. I mean,
You've been undermined.
I think that he pretty much set the tone for the rest of it, like how it's like definitely like more of a slapstick tone and all that.
Yeah,
it's like I mean he's kind of like the car carrying villain that like that you see in those classic cartoons and stuff like that.
It's like Spider-Man going up against the Rhino or something. Just like he's a basic villain that again doesn't have like it's not like a person like Green Goblin or Venom, but it's like a Rhino or a Shocker or maybe a Scorpion. It's like someone's just it's a cool aesthetic. And it's a guy you have to stop at the same time. He's just fun. You don't need a lot of you don't need to know why he's the Underminer. He's a weird old guy who steals money.
I keep seeing. I've seen this somewhere, and I was like, "It's for a completely different series and stuff." But it's like, as much as I liked. I mean, this is I was basically stealing someone else's comment here, but as much as I like complex villains with like reasonable motivations and stories, sometimes it's just fun to have a batshit crazy, over the top villain who knows they're evil and is having fun with it.
Yeah,
exactly. And he set up a certain tone that I wish would have been continued to some extent, but it totally wasn't. It was dropped in the first 10 minutes and then it was never touched on at all. Like he's never even mentioned again. And I just that's very disheartening. It's sad because he seemed like such a cool villain.
Again, I think in the future, Underminer might have more of a thing, but we'll get
that he actually does take like all the powers of the parts to actually beat him.
Well, they don't even beat him though. He gets away.
Well, exactly. He's like one of the few villains to actually succeed in his plan.
It's impressive.
I love when he takes his big robotic claws and it's like one of those jackhammer. Yeah, he's punching Mr. Incredible in the face over and over again. But it's not completely effective, and it's just...
That's actually a good way for like a person without powers to fight Mr. Incredible.
I loved it. Yeah,
he actually does it. He actually does appear at the very end of the credits, though.
Like the idea is you see him under. Well, here's the thing. It's not a scene. It's like in the Incredible like kind of credits style. Where you have like all the cutout look.
Oh yeah.
You see him, the Underminer, still at large. It's kind of almost like a Marvel like promise of like the Underminer will return. They don't say that, but it's kind of visually what they're communicating.
Oh, I never saw that. I'll have to look for that. Look out for that next time.
That's nice. Okay, another one too. Just briefly is of course the opening. The way we open the movie is fantastic with Dicker and Tony Reidinger, where we kind of meet the kid, and Tony Reidinger. He seems like a nice guy.
It's kind of like a different take on the interview from the first movie.
It is, and that was such a smart choice, and that was such a great way of like not starting directly. They could have gotten away with it, but it's like literally we start the movie with that scene. We do link up kind of like we do a Finding Dory. They could have gotten away with it, but it was so much smarter to kind of capture that vibe of the first movie, starting unconventionally. But the moment we have the nostalgia play with, I honestly got teary-eyed from the nostalgia when the opening credits were done in the Incredible style, like da-da-da-da-da, as we see the Disney logo and the Pixar lamp in the black and red and yellows. And it's like, oh my god! So that for me, that got me like welling up.
That's why I pointed out when like we did our first reactions. It's like I was like, okay, they're already starting off on a high note.
They had my money there. Like, okay, take my money. That and bow, they got my money. All right.
Now, is it just me, or does Tony Reidinger have the biggest character design change out of all of them?
To be fair, though, it's just he looks. It's still the same design. They just
but
in my opinion, he looks a bit less dorky here.
They slimmed him down a little. I don't know. He's a little less tall, I guess. I don't know. So there is a change.
His face is definitely. They definitely.
They thinned him out somehow. I think that's about somehow they thinned out.
Basically, the first movie was like their first movie to focus solely on human characters.
Of course, so there's definitely a learning curve, and they used the Universal Man.
And so naturally, I mean, like, I'm not saying like they didn't know how to well design characters. It's just like at that time, it was hard to like make those kind of characters look good in a way. It's like, and so naturally, it's like with better animation techniques.
Yeah, but I know watching the first film and the second film back to back, though, I feel his face just looks too different. Where it's like if he wasn't wearing the same outfit, you wouldn't know it was the same character. And I know animation, it grows, it gets better over time, and they have to change. They have to obviously remodel the characters, but I feel they didn't keep enough of his original facial features.
Well, Sandy, I'll say I hear you. Yeah, I didn't quite see it that way, but I mean, you're right. There was a change in the style. I'll give you that.
Take a screenshot of go see one of the TV spots. Take a screenshot of that Tony compared to the original Tony, and you'll see what I mean.
I think they changed the voice. I think his voice actor is different too.
No. It's the same. It's Brad Bird's son. He's still doing the voice. It's Michael. It's his middle son. No, the oldest plays Tony Reidinger. The middle one was the inspiration for The Incredibles, and the baby is that's where they got Jack from.
It's still the same guy.
I'm saying he has 3 kids, so it's Brad Bird had 3 sons, and all 3 sons kind of influence. But yeah, it's the same. It's Tony Reidinger. Yeah.
I mean, I know one of his sons' voice scored from Finding Nemo, but I didn't know that one.
Well, I mean, from what that's always it's credited as his son is still doing the voice. So I presume it's like unless they use like.
I mean, I don't know if I just didn't know if he was the voice in the first one.
I think it's like a John Morris thing where the kid just sounds the same by some miracle. It's like, oh my god, he sounds like he does. Okay, let's see. But with that opening scene, of course, it celebrates Jack attack, and we have it's a great introduction, the whole mind wipe and everything. It was a really great note to open on. And of course, Tony Roger on the whole, though, he just seems like a nice kid. I agree with Rick Dicker there. Yeah, he just, he says, I should have said hi or something. He didn't feel conventional at all. He just felt like it's he just felt genuine.
I mean, though admittedly, pretty much anyone would kind of react the way he did to seeing the girl he just asked out on a date being a superhero.
I can tell you, that bit kills me though. Tony, and they just he runs away. I should have said hi. I feel a little bad about it.
I mean, admittedly, Wile could have said something too, though.
Well, she did, and it was hilarious.
Yeah.
I realized that when Mr. Incredible first goes to fight the Underminer, the Underminer recognizes him. He's like, "Oh, Mr. Incredible," Mr. Incredible even says, "We meet again." So I guess the Underminer must have been one of the classic villains from the glory days. But what's he been up to all this time? He's just disappeared, and
you could say he's been underground.
He's been undermining this entire time.
He went underground. Right. Okay, so let me just rapid fire some of the pros here. So again, the action is flawless. Again, the elastic screenslaver chase, that's that whole sequencing, and like her running away, and like she gets the cattle prod, which kind of makes her arms go limp, and then she's still soldiering on and chasing. That felt like such a classic Brad Bird action scene.
A minor con though during that is the flashing lights, though.
Yeah, I heard that's causing like a big stir with the epilepsy and everything.
I don't have problems with epilepsy, but I do have sensitive eyes, and I definitely had to like squint my eyes and look away for several times during that. I was like.
It's a fantastic visual, though, and the fact that anywhere she looks, that sequence is staged so well for me.
I mean, don't get me wrong; it's a great scene. It's just like I had to look away from it actively several times because it's very dark in there. And those flashing lights, it's like I have a problem with strobe lights.
It kind of puts you in Helen's shoes in that, though. It's like, yeah, you would be feeling kind of disoriented.
I mean, like I said, don't get me wrong; it's still a great scene.
Sure. Okay, so again, for me, again, I think the performances are great, and I think honestly, for me, again, bear in mind, it's always subject to change, but whenever the next Pixar film is, but I think it's the most beautifully animated Pixar film yet. I really do. I think it looks beautiful.
What is the next Pixar movie?
Toy Story 4. Sorry, say when or where? I said when or what?
I did say what, but Mike, what about after? Is anything confirmed after Toy Story 4?
Well, we have 5 original movies, but I don't know. They haven't revealed what they are. One of them is about like a suburban fantasy, like in a suburban neighborhood, it'd be fantasy, like dragons and knights and stuff.
That's kind of like the one I'm most looking forward to, honestly.
Okay, let's see. So the subtle touches, of course, like the Brad Bird signature of all these subtle touches that we've already gone over. I love how we're reintegrating old ideas and old concepts that this is the stuff I was geeking out most in the movie. Like, I wasn't sure if anyone else would know about, but I'm like, oh my God, I remember that from the DVD. And I learned all the stuff about the movie where the gooey Jack effect, we got away with the gooey Jack because they were going to put that in the first movie when he was transforming in Syndrome's hands. He was going to turn gooey, and they could never get the effect looking good. And they did it here when the raccoon jumps on him. He turns all gooey for a second. They're like, yeah, gooey Jack. They finally figured it out after 14 years. Yeah.
I mean, ice was hard enough to do in the first movie. I can't imagine why they wouldn't. Ice and fire is hard enough. So, like, the goo would be even more difficult.
Goo and duplication and phasing and more. And Then there's basically the idea of giving Bob the credit card back, which is kind of this joke that they had. Like, yeah, let's just give Bob the credit card by like Baby Jack or something. They work the credit card back into things, and one of Edna's original designs is essentially the design that Evelyn has. Evelyn is designed originally. Edna, she was like the same height as Helen and everything. She basically looked a lot like Evelyn. So they kind of reused that one of those old design concepts for Evelyn, which is kind of neat. Again, so overall, I think we avoid a lot of sequel tropes. We keep Bob likable without him without him taking over the movie, because easily he could just be he could basically like steal the limelight away from we cared about the first movie, Mr. Incredible. Then we instantly focused on Bob. But Elastigirl, she holds her own with the screen time. Yeah. One of the great ways we convey story, I love Screenslaver's message delivery system. I love how he communicates with the little girl at the sign. Let me see your sign, sweet. And says the Screenslaver's still around. Like, oh my god, that was cool. Let's see. The futuristic '60s setting still looks great, and we developed that more with the technology, the vehicles, the Elasticycle, all of this.
Like reminds me of a bright Batman the Animated Series.
In a way, yeah, I dug that. I really, kind of Fleischer-esque too.
And like a light deco.
Yeah, you're right. That is a good. Yeah, it is very light deco. I'm sorry. You guys have anything? Because I got like one thing left with pros, and just like very minimal cons.
I've pretty much gone over my cons, but pros, definitely the animation. That goes without saying. I think we already covered all the cons. I mean, the pros. I mean, this is a really good movie. I mean, obviously there are a few things wrong with it, but that goes with any movie out there.
Heck, even the first movie isn't perfect by any standards.
Yeah, of course. But I think we've covered pretty much everything.
Like again, Pixar pretty much continues to hone their craft. It's like they continue to prove it's like, oh, like you made a movie about superheroes. Let's show you how it's done.
I think we. Sorry.
I mean, I'm not trying to show shade or anything. I mean, Pixar wouldn't be one to throw shade, but it's like Brad Bird continues to show like why he's a master of his craft. Like I was able to like do both live action and animation incredibly well. Well, incredibly well. I didn't even mean that, honestly.
Oh, certainly.
But he just continues to like show like he's one of the people to keep an eye on. Like he directed so far like two of my favorite movies from this and from Pixar. Now add a third one to that.
Right, we should. Yeah, are we almost done, guys?
Almost done.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey guys.
You.
Yeah, you've been doing a great job. Sorry, I haven't been. But basically, I've gotten some uninvited visitors over here, and so I've been trying to keep them. Anyways, it doesn't matter. I've been stressed out the last half hour or so, but good job covering my slack. Anyways, yeah, I agree with Sandy. I think we should probably just kind of wrap this up as quick as we can.
All right.
Okay. Like Sandy said, we pretty much went over the cons pretty much throughout our entire discussion.
Well, I guess, yeah, we can skip over the cons then. It's not, I have very minimal cons. It's not important. Okay, so Easter eggs, I'll just hit the big ones here. The big one, the Pizza Planet truck was absolutely in that scene with the screensaver. So the idea is that pizza guy works for Pizza Planet.
Did anyone? I'm sure you guys did notice. Though, did you notice the A113 gag?
Yes, we had multiple A113s. We had Dementia 13, which is also an actual movie that they have like an extra one to. The Frank Capra movie from the '60s, from '64, I think. So we have the point is we have like a multiple A113s. I think one's like on the plane, and the other one's like on the dumpster. That's Syndrome. That's
I definitely noticed the one in the movie theater. I didn't notice any of the other ones.
Yeah, that's the one I noticed. I was like I mean, they specifically highlighted by making one of the A's a different color.
Did anybody spot the Pixar ball?
Yeah, Luxo was. I was in one of the scenes with Jack. That's where we saw the Luxo ball.
Okay.
I don't remember which. Anyway, the point is, it's there when he's playing around. Of course, we do have some great Jack attack references with the Mind Wiper and the Mozart. The fact that he responds to Mozart, that's a direct callback to that Helen is a pilot. Gazer Beam and Phironic. So Phironic was the hero that Syndrome was mistaken for when it's like, is that Phyronic? So those are the two heroes we see in the flashback that they have a direct line to to Devers. A lot of great TV references with The Outer Limits and Johnny Quest. Some Harryhausen's Chinese containers from Monsters Inc. And of course, the Devers studied under Rick Dicker, which of course that's Bob Odenkirk studied under Jonathan Banks. Very Better Call Saul-esque. Very.
Okay, can I mention one thing about Rick Dicker? I wasn't in the room when you guys were talking about him. I really, really hope you guys brought up the line, "It's been an honor serving you good people."
No, we didn't bring that up.
Okay, that line is like the best Rick Dicker line, and it legitimately kind of brings a tear to my eye with the Bud Lucky of it all. Don't you think so, Dragon? I'm surprised you didn't bring it up. That line is like a definitive Rick Dicker line. Just, "It's been an honor serving you good people."
That's a really good line.
Anyways.
All right, let's see. I think that's about that's all the major. I'm sorry, Jacob. Yes.
We miss you, Bud Lucky.
Absolutely. I miss him. I miss him all
May you bound forever in the stars.
Man who gave us the cowboy that changed the world, Bud Lucky. Okay.
I feel like we've been talking about Incredibles 3 pitches like all throughout the podcast, so I don't know. Is there anything else we need to add to that?
Just one.
Okay.
Real quick is that I heard they were kind of Brad Bird or somebody was bouncing around some ideas that they were flirting with. That's interesting too. I absolutely agree with one of them doing a prequel instead of a third one about Bob and Frozen, like how they met, kind of be in the old times of the glory days of the Supers. I'd be for that. I love that idea.
Maybe like how he met Elastigirl.
Exactly. It'd be like just seeing set in the glory days. Bob and Frozen is the main story, and then we could have Elastigirl. We see all the other Supers. I mean, I'd love that movie. That'd be fun. Okay. Also, it'd be nice to see Dever and E be paired together. Again, if we brought back Dever in the third movie along with basically do Underminer, we solved that. Like they finally defeat the Underminer. At some point, we have Dever and Edna working together now, and there's some fun stuff you can mine for a third one. Absolutely.
Like Edna gets to design for a new age of superheroes.
I'll say this though, if they. Well, no, we don't have time for it. Just we'll maybe some other time we'll do some future Incredibles stuff. The point is, those are all the main ones. So
maybe we could do like one of our direct ears things.
Possibly. Who knows? All right, final thoughts, everybody.
I've already expressed all my thoughts in this movie. I'm looking forward to the third one. Hopefully, it doesn't take half as long as it did for this one, but I'm looking forward to it.
Honestly, I think I don't think they should wait more than 5 years. I think that's the most they should, if they're going to wait. I think they work on a movie now. It takes roughly 3 to 4 years for animation. I'd say 5 is like the limit. That's hopefully they're not going to wait longer than 5 years to do another one. Sorry, Jacob, you were saying?
I was gonna say. I mean, if they do end up making another one, they probably would have to start making it right now.
I know. Yeah.
I mean, for all we know, it's it might be just a good idea to cap it off here. I mean, the way it works is and the way Brad Bird operates is you'd only tell the story if it's worth telling. If you can't find a story worth telling, it won't be worth visiting it for a third time.
But for all we know, he already had this story linked in with another one that's already being set up for the third movie.
I mean, again, that's entirely possible. It could be a story worth telling.
Quite possible. All right. For me, it's a fantastic. It's a fantastic sequel that met my expectations. I think it's another win for Brad Bird. I get such a thrill watching Brad Bird's movies. This is yet another entry in that long line of really good Brad Bird movies. It didn't. Again, I go back to my analogy here, where it didn't use every part of the buffalo like the first movie, but again, it uses a good 90 to 95%. And again, just the echo, I didn't really get to express this, but just the genesis. I think they could have stuck the landing more on the ending, because basically what Sandy was referring to is we don't really. There is kind of a gap from they save the day, then the supers are okayed again. I think I'll say this much. I think the clues are there as to why that works, but I don't think they express it enough. I don't think they express like why they made that decision. I wish we got the why a little bit more obvious. I mean, I can read into the why, but at the same time, if they made that more apparent, I think the film would have felt more whole. And that's my only real gripe.
To me, it just seems like a hand wave. Like it was like just like they explained, oh, they were brainwashed, and like they explained it off screen or something.
And that's the thing. And again, that's fine. I can read into that. I can still be happy. But by the same token, it's like, if they could have, like, it's like missing that cherry on top, but it's still the best ice cream sundae you've ever had.
It's like they're missing a single line of dialogue.
Exactly. So again, it's like it's kind of a pittance in the grand scheme, but it's a noticeable pittance versus like something like I don't care for that one, that one sheep baby joke they made with Jack making.
And let's not forget this thing was kind of rushed into being completion. So I guess they probably would have fixed those few things up that are.
And if this is them rushed, I mean, again, you see what they did when rushed. They still made a really excellent movie, a great continuation. It was a fun movie at the very least. When
they made Toy Story 2, and about half the time it took them to make the first one.
Precisely. So the film, honestly, the film feels like an old friend. That's the best way I can put it. The film feels like an old friend. It recaptures the magic and the wonder of the world of The Incredibles, which is what I really wanted. It stands up to the superhero films today as it did then. I think that's important.
I like how despite being a sequel to a film 15 years ago or 14 years ago, it actually still feels fresh. This one,
yeah,
it's like it's not trapped by the past.
Most certainly, while still being set in the past, and it's great.
Like, you get what I'm trying to say, right? It's like it's
absolutely.
Not, I mean, it's not like letting nostalgia or like. I mean, people are like I was kind of afraid it's like going to be The Last Jedi all over again. Like, people set their hopes too high, waiting for this, and then they're not going to meet their expectations, or there's like going to be a one nitpick that ruins the entire movie for them.
It's nostalgia without being in your face nostalgia. It's not fan service. It's not nostalgia. It's just. It's being in that familiar world. It's being in that you're kind of you transported back, and that's the goal of the movie. We start like 2 seconds after the movie ended, and like maybe it's 2 minutes. I keep saying 2 seconds. I think it's like a few left 2 minutes after the movie ended, and you're having just an excellent time with it. And again, it put you back in that frame of mind where everything just was wonderful and the world was like nice and rosy and sunny. It's like, yeah, that was 2004, and Pixar was just like wowing us, and it's wowing us again today.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm back. Is that it?
Yes. You have any final thoughts, Tiki?
No, that was good timing. I just want to say I'm sorry I kind of missed this whole conversation. Really bad timing for family drama to take place, but whatever. I dealt with it. I got through it. I definitely think that this
kind of ironic.
Right. Speaking of puns, I definitely think that this movie is on par with the first movie. I stole Dragon's pun there from our non-spoiler review. There we go. It doesn't have as good of a villain, but as we already kind of established, this movie doesn't need a villain that measures up to the family, because it's all about the family. It's a family picture in the best of ways.
Family picture.
How the phrase goes, like, a hero's only as good as his villain. Like, I think this movie kind of is like the exception to that rule almost.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And I mean, I don't even think the villain's terrible. One of the things
I had like a whole defense for the villain, so we can.
One of the things I didn't get a chance to talk about was the animation on Evelyn. I hope you guys brought that up a little bit.
I did mention
just how naturally she moves.
Yeah.
Anyways, so yeah, that's about it, folks. Thank you so much for listening in. I guess the next spoiler cast is going to be for Ant-Man and Wasp, but I got to tell you, Dragon, I'm really, my heart's set on Christopher Robin.
Also, I think we have Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom too. So.
Oh yeah, that's true. We do have Fallen Kingdom. Oh boy, we'll see how that turns out.
Had my Deadpool 2. Now Tiga's gonna have his Jurassic World 2. We're gonna see how that turns out.
I know, right? Yeah. Okay, guys, but let's quote Edna Mode here for a second. When I when I ask you a simple question, you're going to respond like Edna Mode in this movie, all right?
Okay.
So, was this movie awesome?
Yes, darling.
I believe the correct terminology you're looking for, Jacob, is oh my God.
Oh my God.
Yes.